Bavaria, 1776. In a room lit only by candlelight, 13 men gather around a table carved with symbols most would find unsettling. Their voices are hushed, their movements deliberate. Each has sworn an oath that binds him to absolute secrecy. What they discuss tonight will never appear in any public record, never be debated in any parliament, never be taught in any university. Yet the decisions made in this room will ripple outward, touching lives across Europe and beyond. Now, pull back. See this scene not as singular, but as one frame in an endless film. A different room, a different century, Renaissance Florence, where men in robes exchange coded letters about truths the church has forbidden. Jump forward. Victorian London, where gentlemen in silk top hats perform rituals their wives will never witness. Leap again. Modern glass towers, where meetings occur behind closed doors, attendee lists never published, minutes never released. The pattern repeats. Always has, always will. History, as you learned it, follows a simple narrative. Great men make speeches. Armies clash. Treaties are signed. Causes lead to effects in neat, linear progressions. But what if that is merely the surface? What if beneath the history we retort exists another layer? One written in invisible ink, spoken in whispers, conducted in shadows. In 1784, something extraordinary happened. A courier rode through the Bavarian countryside carrying documents of unusual importance. Then lightning struck. The man died instantly, his body thrown from the horse, papers scattering across the muddy road. When local authorities gathered these rain-soaked pages and began reading, they discovered something that would send shockwaves through every royal court in Europe. Plans, strategies, names, a network operating beneath the notice of kings and kaisers, working toward goals that contradicted everything those monarchs believed secure. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is documented history. The question isn't whether secret societies have existed. Records prove they have. The question is what they actually did. How much influence did they truly wield? And more importantly, do their modern equivalents shape our world today? Some secret societies are pure myth, invented by paranoid minds seeking villains for complex problems. Others are exaggerated far beyond their actual reach. But strip away the fantasy, and you find something real: documented organizations that operated in calculated secrecy, networks of influential individuals bound by oaths and shared knowledge, groups that understood a fundamental truth about power. Information asymmetry is control. When you know something others don't, you hold advantage. When you coordinate with others who share that knowledge while outsiders remain ignorant, you multiply that advantage exponentially. This is why humans have always formed hidden groups, not because of evil intentions necessarily, but because secrecy grants power that openness cannot. Over the coming hours, we separate documented fact from popular fiction. We explore verified secret societies, their actual operations, their real influence, their genuine impact on events you thought you understood. We examine the psychology that makes such organizations possible and the patterns that repeat across cultures and centuries. Understanding how secret societies truly functioned might change how you see power structures operating around you right now. The networks may look different today. Technology has evolved, methods have adapted, but the fundamental dynamics remain unchanged. But before we can understand how secret societies shaped our modern world, we must first ask, why do humans create secret societies at all? Your brain has a vulnerability, not a flaw, exactly. More like a feature that can be exploited if someone knows how. When you discover you're part of an exclusive group, when you're told you now possess knowledge others don't have, your brain releases dopamine and oxytocin, the same neurochemical cocktail that floods your system when you fall in love. This isn't accidental, it is evolution. For millions of years, belonging to the right group meant survival. Being excluded meant death. Your ancestors who felt powerful bonds to their tribe, who valued group membership above individual interest, were the ones who lived long enough to pass on their genes. You inherited that wiring. Secret societies didn't create this vulnerability. They discovered it and built entire organizational structures around exploiting it. Consider what happens when someone is initiated into any exclusive organization. First, there is selection. You're chosen. This triggers immediate reward signals. You're special, worthy, recognized. Then comes the oath, the promise of secrecy. By swearing not to reveal what you're about to learn, you've made a commitment. Psychology shows us that humans honor commitments, especially public ones, even when those commitments harm us. It is called cognitive consistency, and it is remarkably powerful. Next comes revelation, but not all at once. Secret societies rarely dump their entire knowledge base on new members. Instead, they use progressive disclosure, revealing secrets in stages, each requiring advancement through ranks. Learn this much, prove your loyalty, and we'll tell you more. This structure mirrors something modern audiences understand intuitively: video game achievement systems. Complete this level, unlock the next. The dopamine hit from each small revelation keeps members engaged, always chasing the next secret, the higher degree, the inner circle. But why does secrecy make information more valuable? Because it creates artificial scarcity. Medieval guilds understood this perfectly. A master craftsman possessed techniques for tempering steel or mixing dyes that apprentices couldn't access for years. That secret knowledge was worth more than gold because it was rare. Anyone could buy metal or fabric, but only guild members knew how to transform them into products others couldn't replicate. Religious mystery cults in ancient Greece operated on identical principles. Thousands were initiated into the Eleusinian mysteries over 1,000 years. Not one revealed the central secret. The knowledge itself might have been simple. Some scholars think it was just a dramatic, theatrical experience. But the secrecy surrounding it made membership precious. This pattern appears everywhere. Espionage networks guard intelligence that, if widely known, would lose strategic value. The information that a nation plans to invade its neighbor is only useful if the neighbor doesn't know. Once revealed, it is worthless. Secrecy creates temporary information asymmetry, and in that gap between knowing and not knowing lies tremendous power. The rituals and symbols secret societies employ aren't just theatrical flourish, they serve practical functions. Complicated initiation ceremonies build emotional investment. If you've endured elaborate ritual to join, you value membership more. Shared symbols create instant recognition between members who've never met. Secret handshakes, coded language, specific gestures, these allow coordination across vast distances without written records that could be intercepted. Not all secrecy is sinister. Medieval guilds used it to protect trade knowledge, functioning as early forms of intellectual property protection. Mutual aid societies kept membership private to avoid persecution. Early Christians met in secret because Roman authorities hunted them. Secrecy served survival, not conspiracy. Think of secret societies as information networks before the internet existed. They allowed rapid knowledge sharing between trusted parties across continents. A Freemason traveling from London to Philadelphia in 1750 could identify fellow members and gain instant access to local networks, lodging, credit, business opportunities. The secret signs and words were essentially encrypted authentication protocols. You see this today. Non-disclosure agreements restrict information flow. Security clearances create hierarchies of access. Private forums and encrypted messaging apps allow groups to coordinate invisibly. These aren't aberrations. They re the same human impulses that created secret societies, now expressed through modern technology. The point isn't that secrecy is good or evil. It is that secrecy is human. Understanding why people form hidden groups helps us evaluate their influence rationally, rather than through the distorting lens of paranoia or dismissal. With this understanding of why humans create secret societies, we can now trace them to their origins, to the ancient world where the first hidden brotherhoods emerged not as villains of history, but as its silent architects. Let us be clear about what you are going to hear over the coming hours, and perhaps more importantly, what you won. This isn't a catalogue of every conspiracy theory ever whispered about secret societies. U1. T here claims that reptilian overlords control governments, or that a single organization orchestrates every world event from a hidden fortress. Those stories might be entertaining, but they re not what we re here to explore. Instead, we re following evidence, documentary evidence, the kind historians can verify, that withstands scrutiny, that reveals genuine patterns rather than paranoid fantasies. Our criteria is straightforward. For a secret society to appear in this journey, it must meet at least one of three standards. First, it left written records, correspondence, membership lists, organizational documents, ritual texts. Second, it was documented by contemporary observers, government officials, journalists, rival organizations, defectors. Third, it had verified members whose public actions can be traced and analyzed. If we can, T prove a society existed through these methods, we won, T claim it did. This means UL hear about organizations like the Freemasons, whose membership records span centuries and include presidents, philosophers, and revolutionaries. We L examine the Bavarian Illuminati. Yes, they were real, though what they actually accomplished differs dramatically from what legend suggests. The Knights Templar will appear, not as guardians of holy relics, but as medieval Europe's first international banking network. The Rosicrucians present a fascinating case study in how secret societies can influence history, even if they might never have existed at all. What we re-seeking is T individual stories, though those will emerge. We re-hunting patterns. How do secret societies form? What organizational structures do they adopt? How do they recruit and maintain loyalty? What methods do they use to influence events without leaving obvious fingerprints? And crucially, what happens when they succeed, or when they fail? These patterns matter because they repeat. The tactics used by 18th century revolutionaries to coordinate across borders appear again in 20th century intelligence operations. The psychological techniques ancient mystery cults employed to bind initiates show up in modern corporate culture. The information network secret societies built centuries ago prefigured the encrypted digital communities operating today. We examine how secret societies influenced political revolutions, not causing them single-handedly, but providing the networks through which revolutionary ideas spread and coordinated action became possible. We explore their role in religious movements, both as protectors of heterodox beliefs and as forces shaping mainstream faiths. We trace their impact on scientific advancement, revealing how some societies preserved forbidden knowledge, while others created the first international scientific communities. And we investigate their economic influence, from medieval guilds controlling trade to modern policy councils where decisions affecting millions occur behind closed doors. Expect surprises. Some organizations you thought were merely legendary turn out to have been quite real. Others you assumed were all-powerful will reveal themselves as smaller and less influential than myth suggests. You discover that certain historical events you attributed to individual genius or accident were actually the result of coordinated activity by hidden networks. And you learn that some of the most persistent conspiracy theories are inversions of reality, projecting onto imaginary villains what documented organizations actually did. By the end of this journey, 3 things you believed about history will be proven wrong. But more importantly, you recognize the patterns of secret societies operating around you today, and you never see the news the same way again. This isn't about making you paranoid. It is about making you literate in how power actually functions. Secret societies aren't supernatural. They re-human organizations that understood something fundamental about influence. That coordination in silence often achieves what public advocacy cannot. The emotional arc ahead includes moments of genuine revelation, points where established narratives crack open to reveal more complex realities underneath. But our conclusions will be measured, not sensational, nuanced, not absolutist, because the truth about secret societies is more interesting than any conspiracy theory, and far more relevant to understanding the world you navigate daily. Our journey begins not in Europe or America, but in the ancient world, In Egypt, Greece, and Persia, where the first secret societies formed around mysteries so powerful that civilizations built temples to protect them. The Nile rises every year. For ancient Egyptians, this wasn't merely a natural phenomenon. It was the difference between abundance and starvation, between life and death, for an entire civilization. The floods came with such regularity that you might think anyone could predict them. Yet for thousands of years, only one group consistently knew when the waters would arrive: the priests. They claimed the gods whispered to them. The common people believed this. Even pharaohs, who ruled as living gods themselves, deferred to priestly wisdom. But the truth was more remarkable than divine revelation. The priests were astronomers. They spent generations tracking star movements, correlating celestial patterns with flood cycles, building mathematical models that allowed prediction with startling accuracy. This was magic. It was science, but science, indistinguishable from magic, is the most powerful kind of secret. Walk through the ruins of Karnak today, and you see more than monuments to gods. You are standing in what was essentially the world's first research institution, library, and secret society headquarters rolled into one massive complex. Behind those towering columns, within those shadowed halls, Egyptian priests conducted experiments in chemistry they called alchemy, practiced surgeries described in papyri modern doctors recognize as sophisticated, and calculated astronomical tables that wouldn't be matched in accuracy for millennia. When archaeologists opened Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, they found objects that shouldn't have existed. Not curses, though the story makes for good headlines, but evidence of technical knowledge far beyond what conventional history claimed ancient Egyptians possessed. Electrical, like devices whose purpose remains debated. Pigments requiring chemical processes we thought weren't discovered until the Renaissance. Medical instruments suggesting surgical procedures that official timelines say were impossible. The priests guarded this knowledge jealously. Initiation into their orders required years of training. Candidates underwent elaborate ceremonies involving symbolic death and rebirth. Locked in darkness, subjected to sensory deprivation, emerging reborn as new beings with access to restricted knowledge. These rituals served dual purposes. Psychologically, they bonded initiates through shared intense experience. Practically, they filtered out those who might not maintain secrecy under pressure. Knowledge was divided into degrees. Outer temple initiates learned basic astronomy and mathematics. Inner temple members axed medical texts and chemical formulas. The highest priests knew the deepest secrets, knowledge so valued that some was literally taken to graves, lost when lineages ended abruptly. Why such extreme secrecy? Consider the world they inhabited. No copyright-protected intellectual property. No patents guaranteed innovators could profit from discoveries. If a priest revealed the astronomical calculations predicting floods, anyone could use them. The priesthood's power evaporated the moment their knowledge became common. Secrecy wasn't paranoia. It was the only business model available for protecting information capital, and it granted extraordinary influence. Pharaohs might command armies, but priests commanded something more valuable: the appearance of divine favor. When priests miraculously predicted floods, cured diseases, or demonstrated impossible feats using hidden mechanical knowledge, they proved their connection to the gods. This gave them veto power over royal decisions, control over vast temple economies, and immunity from the political turbulence that regularly toppled dynasties. The priests didn't stay confined to Egypt. Evidence suggests they traveled throughout the Mediterranean as advisors, teachers, and traders. They appeared in Greek cities, Phoenician ports, Persian courts. Wherever they went, they brought their organizational model: hierarchical initiation, progressive revelation of secrets, ritual bonding, and the fundamental equation of restricted knowledge equals concentrated power. Later, when Alexander the Great conquered Egypt, his generals understood what they'd found. The Library of Alexandria, built under Ptolemaic rule, was an evolution of the temple model. a place where knowledge was gathered, preserved, and carefully controlled. Access wasn't democratic. Scholars required sponsorship, faced scrutiny, worked under supervision. The library collected secrets from across the known world, making Alexandria the information capital of antiquity. This Egyptian model became the template. Every secret society that followed, Greek mystery cults, medieval guilds, Renaissance scientific academies, adopted variations of the same structure. Restrict knowledge, require initiation, build hierarchy, use ritual to bond members, maintain secrecy to preserve advantage. The priests understood something that remains true today. In a world where everyone has access to the same information, no one has advantage, but create scarcity. Ensure some people know what others don't, and you create power that transcends wealth or military force. But Egypt wasn't alone. Across the Mediterranean, another civilization was developing secret societies that would directly influence the Western world. Societies that promised initiates nothing less than the secrets of existence itself. Imagine walking the sacred way from Athens to Eleusis. It is September, the air still warm from summer. You've been fasting for days. Your mind feels loose, unmoored. Around you walk hundreds of others, merchants, soldiers, philosophers, politicians, all silent, all preparing. You know only that at the end of this 14-mile pilgrimage, something will happen, something that will change you, but you don't know what. The priests have told you nothing specific, only that you must keep what you witness absolutely secret. The penalty for revealing the mysteries isn't legal, it is social death. No one will speak to you, no one will trade with you. You'll become a ghost among the living. And the oath you've sworn isn't to a king or god you can rationalize away. It is to every other initiate, past and future. Breaking it means betraying a chain of trust stretching back centuries. For over 1,000 years, tens of thousands participated in the Eleusinian mysteries. Every single one kept the secret, even under torture, even facing death. What could possibly create such absolute loyalty? When you finally enter the darkened Telesterion, the great hall of initiation, you're exhausted, hungry, psychologically vulnerable. What happens next remains unknown to history, not because records were destroyed, but because they were never written. The secret was transmitted only orally, only to those who'd earned it through the journey you've just completed. Scholars have theories. Some point to ergot, a fungus that grows on barley and contains compounds similar to LSD. The sacred drink consumed during initiation, the kykeon, was barley-based. Perhaps the experience was chemical, a controlled psychedelic journey interpreted through religious framework. Others suggest elaborate theatre, hidden machinery, light effects, staged appearances that seemed miraculous in the darkness. Archaeological excavations reveal sophisticated architectural features that could have enabled dramatic productions invisible to daytime visitors. But perhaps the mechanism misses the point. Whatever happened in that hall, chemical, theatrical, or purely psychological, profoundly affected participants. Cicero, one of Rome's greatest orators, wrote that the mysteries revealed the principles of life and taught how to die with hope. Plato, whose philosophy shaped Western thought for millennia, referenced the mysteries as glimpses of higher reality. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and Stoic philosopher, counted his initiation among life's formative experiences. These weren't credulous peasants. They were the intellectual elite of the ancient world, trained in rhetoric and logic, skeptical of easy answers. Yet they emerged from Eleusis transformed, speaking in veiled language about having seen beyond the veil and understanding death as passage rather than ending. The Orphic mysteries offered something different but equally compelling. Named for the mythical poet Orpheus, these cults promised initiates could achieve immortality through secret knowledge and moral living. They taught that the soul was divine, trapped in the body, destined to reincarnate until purified through proper understanding and behavior. Sound familiar? These concepts would later appear in Christianity, Gnosticism, and various philosophical schools. Orphic initiates carried gold tablets in their graves, inscribed with passwords and instructions for navigating the afterlife. Archaeologists have found dozens of these across the Mediterranean. The tablets reveal a sophisticated cosmology, the soul's journey through various gates, challenges from guardians demanding correct responses, choices between memory and forgetfulness that determine rebirth or liberation. But here is what matters beyond the theology. These mystery cults functioned as elite social networks. When you met another initiate, whether in Athens, Alexandria, or Rome, you shared immediate connection. The bond created by common secret experience transcended normal social boundaries. A merchant could speak as equal with a senator. A slave who'd been initiated held status a free non-initiate lacked. These networks facilitated business deals, political alliances, and information exchange outside official channels. Imagine trying to coordinate activities across the ancient world without telephone or internet. Mystery cults provided encrypted communication networks, shared symbolic language, recognition signs, and most importantly, trust. If you'd both endured the same trials, sworn the same oaths, you could rely on each other in ways impossible with outsiders. This reveals a pattern that repeats throughout history. Secret societies always serve dual functions. Overtly, they promise spiritual enlightenment, moral elevation, or esoteric knowledge. Covertly, they create social capital. The mystical content attracts idealists. The networking value attracts pragmatists. Both groups benefit, neither fully acknowledging the other's primary motivation. As Greek influence spread through Alexander's conquests and later Roman expansion, these mystery cults went international. An initiate could travel from Spain to Syria, finding fellow members at every major city. The mysteries created what might be history's first truly cosmopolitan community, people who identified with each other across ethnic, linguistic, and political divisions. The Romans, practical as always, recognized the value. Rather than suppress mystery cults, they absorbed them. Emperors sought initiation. Roman aristocrats funded temples. The mysteries became part of the establishment they'd once existed outside of. These Greek mystery cults established patterns that would echo through history: secret initiations, progressive revelation of knowledge, and networks of influence spanning entire empires. But as Greece fell and Rome rose, new secret societies emerged, societies that would eventually challenge the greatest empire the world had ever seen. The Roman Empire had spent centuries perfecting the art of suppression. When rebellions emerged, legions crushed them. When cults grew too influential, authorities disbanded them. When threats appeared, Rome's response was swift and brutal. They turned suppression into science, refined through generations of conquered peoples and eliminated rivals. Yet Christianity survived. More than survived, it conquered the empire that tried to erase it. How? The answer lies in recognizing something most histories overlook. Early Christians accidentally invented an organizational structure so resilient that modern intelligence agencies would study it 2,000 years later, marveling at its sophistication. Consider the context. By the 1st century, Rome had banned most secret societies. Political clubs were illegal after they'd been used to organize violence. Mystery cults faced increasing scrutiny. The empire had learned that groups meeting in secret, bound by oaths, answering to hidden leadership, these were dangerous. They undermined centralized control. Then Christianity appeared, violating every prohibition. Christians met secretly in homes, basements, and eventually the catacombs beneath Rome itself. They used coded symbols: the fish, the anchor, the chai, recognizable to initiates but meaningless to outsiders. They practiced exclusive rituals that non-members could witness: communion meals where they claimed to consume flesh and blood, baptisms that marked entry into the community, laying on of hands that conveyed authority. This wasn't accidental, secrecy was survival. The catacombs of Rome still exist, miles of underground tunnels where Christians gathered beyond the reach of imperial authorities. Modern visitors see them as burial sites, which they were. But they were also meeting spaces, hidden churches, networks of corridors where small groups could assemble without detection. Archaeological evidence shows chambers designed for gatherings, wall paintings depicting rituals, spaces deliberately constructed for secret worship. But here is what made Christianity uniquely resilient: its network structure. Unlike traditional organizations with centralized leadership that could be destroyed by arresting key figures, Christianity operated as autonomous cells. Each congregation was largely independent. They knew local members but had limited information about other groups. Traveling apostles and bishops connected these cells, carrying messages and maintaining doctrinal consistency, but no single leader controlled everything. This meant that when Romans arrested Christians and tortured them for information, prisoners could reveal much. They knew their local congregation, maybe 20 or 30 people, and perhaps some traveling teachers. But they could expose the entire network because they didn't know it. Each captured cell revealed only itself. The larger organism survived. Modern intelligence agencies call this compartmentalization. Terrorist networks use it. Resistance movements during World War II employed it. The structure prevents total collapse when parts are compromised. Christians invented it not through strategic planning but through necessity, adapting to persecution by evolving structures that made them nearly impossible to fully eliminate. The Christian agape meals, love feasts, functioned like the banquets of ancient mystery cults and later secret societies. Members gathered to eat, yes, but more importantly to bond. Shared meals create powerful social cohesion. Breaking bread together triggers neurological responses that build trust and group identity. These weren't just religious services. They were networking events, support systems, places where the community reinforced itself, and Christians supported each other economically. The early church functioned as mutual aid society. Members shared resources, cared for widows and orphans, provided employment and assistance to fellow believers. In an empire where most people lived precarious existences, this network offered tangible benefits. You joined Christianity and gained immediate access to a support system. This practical advantage helped explain rapid growth among poor populations who had few other safety nets. Constantine's conversion in 312 CE is often portrayed as sudden divine revelation. But Constantine was a brilliant military strategist who'd been watching Christianity for years. He observed the organization that survived everything Rome threw at it, that inspired absolute loyalty, that coordinated across vast distances without formal hierarchy. He recognized effectiveness when he saw it. Once Christianity gained imperial favor, something fascinating occurred. It didn't abandon secret society structures. It institutionalized them. The hierarchical priesthood mirrored mystery cult organization. Certain rituals remained closed to outsiders. Even today, many denominations practice closed communion. The catechism system, teaching initiates progressively before full membership through baptism, directly paralleled mystery cult degree systems. Christianity absorbed organizational patterns from the very Roman institutions that had tried to destroy it. The Church adopted Roman administrative divisions, Latin as sacred language, elaborate ceremonial robes resembling imperial garments. It transformed from underground resistance to establishment power, bringing its secret society DNA into institutional form. This pattern repeats throughout history. Secret societies that succeed don't remain secret, they become institutions. The organizational structures that allowed survival in the shadows become the framework for public power. The tactics of the persecuted become the tools of the establishment. Christianity proved that the right organizational structure, combined with ideological commitment and practical benefits, could outlast empires. It demonstrated that networks resilient enough survive long enough eventually inherit the world they once hid from. Christianity's transformation from secret society to state religion left a power vacuum. As the Roman Empire collapsed, new secret societies would emerge from the chaos, brotherhoods of warriors, mystics, and scholars who would shape medieval Europe from the shadows. Jerusalem, 1119. 9 knights take vows that shouldn't coexist: poverty, chastity, obedience, standard monastic promises, but also to kill in defense of pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land. They call themselves the Poor Fellow, soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. History will know them as the Knights Templar. The concept was radical. Monks weren't supposed to spill blood. Warriors weren't supposed to renounce wealth. Yet these men embodied both contradictions, creating something medieval Europe had never seen: a standing military order that answered to no king, owned property across continents, and operated under direct papal authority. Within a decade, they received extraordinary privileges from Pope Innocent II, exemption from local laws, freedom from paying taxes to any temporal authority, the right to keep all spoils of war, permission to build their own churches and conduct their own services. These weren't minor benefits. They made the Templars essentially sovereign, an international organization operating across borders with immunity from the kings whose lands they occupied. They grew rapidly. Minor nobility sent their younger sons, men who would inherit estates but needed honorable careers. Donations poured in from wealthy Christians seeking salvation through supporting the holy cause. Within 50 years, the Templars owned fortresses, farms, and urban properties from Scotland to Palestine. They became one of medieval Europe's largest landowners. But land was just the beginning. The Templars invented something that would make them not just wealthy but indispensable: international banking. Consider the problem they solved. A pilgrim in Paris wants to travel to Jerusalem, a journey taking months through dangerous territory. Carrying gold or silver invites robbery, but the Templars controlled fortresses along the entire route. So they created a system: deposit your money at a Templar house in Paris, receive an encrypted letter, and withdraw the equivalent amount at any Templar facility in the Holy Land. The encryption was sophisticated. Letters contained codes that changed based on date, location, and amount. Only Templars knew how to authenticate them. This prevented forgery while allowing secure transfer of wealth across thousands of miles. It was history's first international banking network, and it worked so well that soon not just pilgrims but merchants, nobles, and even kings used Templar financial services. Their fortresses became more than military installations. They were secure deposits, medieval Fort Knoxes where nobles stored valuables, knowing Templar vows and military strength protected their wealth better than any royal treasury. The Templars charged for these services, of course. Interest on loans, fees for transfers, storage costs, money accumulated. How much? We'll never know exactly. But when King Philip IV surveyed his kingdom's finances in 1307, he confronted an ugly truth. He owed the Templars staggering amounts. His military campaigns had been financed by Templar loans. His administration ran on Templar credit, and unlike other creditors, the Templars had the military force and international support to demand repayment. Philip needed a solution. On Friday, the 13th of October, 1307, he implemented one. At dawn, simultaneously across France, royal officials arrested every Templar knight they could find. Thousands of men seized in a coordinated operation that wouldn't be matched in scale until modern SWAT raids. How did Philip plan this in absolute secrecy? Because he learned from the masters of secrecy themselves. He used sealed orders, compartmentalized information, and moved so quickly that the Templars, despite their intelligence networks, had no warning. The charges were heresy, denying Christ, worshipping idols, obscene rituals during secret initiations. The accusations were convenient, unprovable yet damning, allowing Philip to confiscate Templar property while claiming religious justification. Under torture, some Templars confessed. Others maintained innocence, even as flesh burned and bones broke. The confessions were contradictory, clearly coerced, but Philip didn't need truth. He needed legal cover for what was essentially sophisticated theft. The Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, was burned alive in 1314, maintaining innocence to the end. Legend says he cursed Philip and Pope Clement V from the flames, promising they'd join him within a year. Both did die within months, which fed conspiracy theories, but was likely coincidence combined with the stress of orchestrating mass murder. What happened to the Templar wealth? It vanished. Philip seized French properties, but the legendary treasures, the gold, the relics, the secret documents, were never found. Some likely reached Scotland, where Templar sympathizers ruled. Some may have been hidden in the elaborate tunnel systems beneath Templar fortresses. Some was probably seized by other monarchs who followed Philip's example. Archaeological excavations of Templar sites continue revealing secrets, sophisticated ventilation systems, hidden chambers, engineering that seems too advanced for the period, financial ledgers showing transactions across dozens of countries. These are facts. The Holy Grail, the Ark of the Covenant, treasure maps leading to buried gold. These are legends impossible to verify and likely fabricated centuries after the Templars fell. But here is what we know with certainty. The Templars created the first international corporation, complete with brand identity, standardized operations, and financial instruments that prefigured modern banking. They accumulated power that threatened kings. And they learned the hardest lesson secret societies ever face. When you become too powerful, too visible, too wealthy, eventually someone powerful enough to destroy you decides your assets are worth more than your existence. Loyalty oaths protected Templars from betraying each other. Secrecy safeguarded their operations. Military skill defended their fortresses. None of it mattered when the King of France decided to move against them because they'd made a fatal error. They'd stopped being secret. Their power had become too obvious, their wealth too tempting. The Templars weren't the only brotherhood operating in medieval Europe. While knights fought in the Holy Land, artisans and craftsmen were forming their own secret societies. Guilds that would control entire economies and preserve knowledge through centuries of upheaval. In medieval Europe, if you wanted to bake bread professionally, you needed to swear a blood oath. Break that oath, and your family might never work again. This wasn't religion, this was business, and it controlled everything. We don't think of guilds as secret societies. They seem mundane compared to Templars or mystery cults. But strip away the romantic imagery of knights and rituals, and guilds reveal themselves as perhaps history's most successful secret societies, organizations that controlled entire economies for centuries through restricted knowledge and absolute loyalty oaths. The structure was elegant. 3 tiers: apprentice, journeyman, master. Sound familiar? It is the same progressive degree system every secret society uses. From ancient mystery cults to modern Freemasonry, you entered at the bottom, knowing nothing. Over years, sometimes a decade or more, you learned progressively more complex skills. But only masters possessed the final secrets, the techniques that separated adequate work from mastery. Consider the stonemasons who built Europe's great cathedrals. Apprentices learned to cut stone square. Journeymen understood how to dress blocks and position them. But only masters knew the geometric calculations that kept towering vaults from collapsing, the architectural principles that allowed massive stone ceilings to seem weightless. This knowledge was never written down. It was transmitted orally, master to apprentice, protected by oaths as binding as any religious vow. And the Masons had something else: recognition systems, secret handshakes, geometric symbols carved into stones that identified the craftsman. Specific ways of holding tools that marked you as initiated. These weren't theatrical, they were practical. In a world where workers traveled between building sites across countries, these signs allowed masters to identify legitimate craftsmen immediately, preventing frauds from getting hired for skilled positions. The Venetian glassblowers of Murano took secrecy even further. Their techniques for making clear glass, a technology that gave Venice commercial dominance, were so valuable that glassworkers were forbidden from leaving the island. Not by choice, by law, enforced with death. If you knew the secrets of Venetian glass and tried to leave, assassins would find you. Several who fled to other European cities mysteriously died. The message was clear: guild secrets were worth killing for. German brewers guarded their formulas with similar intensity. The recipe for clear, stable beer that wouldn't spoil, what we now call lager, remained a closely held secret for generations. Only masters knew the precise temperatures, timing, and ingredient ratios. Brewers who revealed these methods faced expulsion, which meant professional death in a world where your trade was your identity. But guilds weren't just about restricting knowledge. They functioned as complete welfare systems. Members paid dues that funded healthcare when you fell ill, supported your family if you died, provided loans when business struggled. Guild halls became community centers where craftsmen gathered, where disputes were resolved, where quality standards were enforced. Those halls still stand in European cities, Bruges, York, London, decorated with elaborate symbols, the compass and square of masons, the scissors of tailors, the hammer of blacksmiths. Each symbol identified the trade, but they also conveyed deeper meanings understood only by members. The architecture itself often contained hidden symbolism, geometric ratios and proportions that demonstrated the builder's secret knowledge. This was economic control achieved through information asymmetry. If you didn't know the secrets, you couldn't compete. Guilds set prices, controlled who could practice trades, and determined production methods. They were cartels, but legal ones, sanctioned by church and crown, because they maintained quality and social stability. Yet they also prevented progress. Innovations that threatened existing masters were suppressed. A journeyman who invented a faster production method might find himself blocked from master status, his technique stolen or banned. Guilds preserved valuable expertise, yes, but they also calcified industries, making change nearly impossible. When the Industrial Revolution arrived, it had to break guild power. Factory owners needed workers they could train quickly for specialized tasks, not craftsmen who'd spent years learning holistic skills. Governments dismantled guild privileges, allowing anyone to practice trades. Knowledge that had been restricted for centuries became, gradually, public. Modern audiences understand this dynamic intuitively. Non-disclosure agreements, proprietary information, trade secrets. These are guild methods updated for the information age. Tech companies guard algorithms, manufacturers protect processes. The mechanisms are different, but the principle remains: whoever controls specialized knowledge controls market position. Guilds prove that secret societies weren't confined to religious or political spheres. They operated in the economic realm, perhaps more effectively than anywhere else. For half a millennium, they shaped European commerce through restricted knowledge, ritual bonding, and absolute loyalty enforced by oath. They were the economic shadow government, invisible to those outside them, omnipotent to those within. While guilds controlled commerce, another type of secret society emerged in medieval Europe, one that promised not economic power but spiritual transformation. The Rosicrucians claimed to possess secrets that could transmute metals, cure diseases, and unlock the mysteries of the universe. Germany, 1614. A pamphlet appears in the streets of Kassel, then spreads to other cities. No author is named. The title promises revelation, Fama Fraternitatis, or a discovery of the fraternity of the most noble order of the Rosy Cross. It tells a story. A German nobleman named Christian Rosenkreuz traveled to the East centuries earlier, Damascus, Arabia, Egypt, Morocco, learning secrets the West had forgotten: alchemy, medicine, mathematics, mysticism. He returned to Germany and founded a brotherhood to preserve this knowledge, the Rosicrucian Order. For generations they worked in silence, healing the sick, advising rulers, preparing for the day when humanity would be ready for their wisdom. That day, the pamphlet announced, had arrived. The Rosicrucians were ready to reveal themselves. They invited Europe's learned men to join them in reforming knowledge and society. The effect was electric. Intellectuals across Europe responded with public letters, treatises, and appeals. Please reveal yourselves. We wish to join. Philosophers wrote entire books praising Rosicrucian wisdom. Scientists pledged allegiance to the order. Everyone wanted in, but no Rosicrucians ever appeared. A second manifesto emerged in 1615, the Confessio Fraternitatis, deepening the mystery with more promises and hints. Then a third document, an allegorical tale called The Chemical Wedding of Christian Rosenkreuz, describing bizarre symbolic ceremonies. Still, no actual Rosicrucians made contact. No one could find them. No physical evidence suggested they existed. Scholars now believe the manifestos were likely written by a circle of Protestant intellectuals, possibly centered around Johann Valentin Andreae, a German theologian. The whole thing may have been an elaborate thought experiment or satirical commentary on European intellectual life. a fictional secret society created to promote ideas about religious reform, scientific method, and social improvement. Imagine that, announcing you are part of a secret society that doesn't exist, then watching as real secret societies form based on your fiction. That is either the greatest prank in history or something far more strange. Because here is what happened. Even though the original Rosicrucians probably never existed, the idea of Rosicrucians became real. By the 18th century, actual Rosicrucian orders had formed across Europe, all claiming descent from the legendary Christian Rosencreutz. They created elaborate initiation rituals, degree systems teaching Kabbalah and alchemy, and organizational structures based entirely on the fictional manifestos. Some members were serious occultists, believing they tapped into genuine mystical traditions. Others were scientists using alchemical language as code for chemistry experiments that the church might condemn. Isaac Newton filled notebooks with alchemical symbols and Rosicrucian references. Robert Boyle, founder of modern chemistry, corresponded with people claiming Rosicrucian knowledge. Were these men deluded, or were they using the cover of mysticism to pursue empirical research that challenged religious orthodoxy? The line blurs. Rosicrucian orders influenced early scientific societies. The Royal Society in London had members with Rosicrucian connections. Ideas about experimental method, religious tolerance, and education reform circulated through networks that identified as Rosicrucian. The Invisible College, a group of natural philosophers who pioneered what became modern science, was sometimes called Rosicrucian because they worked in semi-secrecy, sharing knowledge outside traditional academic structures. Documents survive showing Rosicrucian influence on religious tolerance movements, particularly in German principalities where Protestant and Catholic conflicts threatened stability. The Rosicrucian ideal of universal wisdom, transcending sectarian division, appealed to rulers seeking peaceful coexistence. So did they exist? The original brotherhood Christian Rosencreutz supposedly founded? Almost certainly not. The manifestos were likely fiction, perhaps well-intentioned, perhaps satirical, but the Rosicrucian orders that formed in later centuries inspired by that fiction, those definitely existed. They had members, meeting halls, libraries, and influence on intellectual movements that shaped the modern world. This reveals something profound about secret societies. They function as much in imagination as reality. The power isn't always in the actual organization, it is in the idea of the organization. When people believe a secret society exists, they alter their behavior. They coordinate around the perceived society, even if it is phantom. And sometimes believing in a fictional society causes real societies to materialize like thought made flesh. The Rosicrucian mystery remains unsolved. We have the manifestos, we have later orders claiming lineage, but the original brotherhood, that stays hidden in the mist where history meets legend, impossible to verify yet undeniably influential. The Rosicrucian story reveals something crucial. Secret societies don't need to be real to be powerful. They need to be believed. This lesson wouldn't be lost on the men who would create the most famous secret society of the Enlightenment, a society that very much did exist, and whose influence continues today. London, 1717. 4 lodges gather at the Goose and Gridiron Ale House in St. Paul's churchyard. None of the men present are actual stonemasons. They merchants, scholars, gentlemen, educated men who adopted the symbols and rituals of medieval craft guilds for purposes that have nothing to do with building cathedrals. They vote to form the Grand Lodge of England, creating what history will call modern Freemasonry. This is the moment speculative masonry becomes official. The transition had been happening for decades. Actual stonemason guilds had been dying as Renaissance architecture replaced Gothic building techniques. But their organizational structure, the rituals, the symbols, the brotherhood attracted men seeking something medieval guilds once provided, a community bound by shared knowledge and mutual obligation. Why would educated, successful men join? Because Masonic lodges offered something revolutionary in 18th century Europe, spaces where aristocrats, merchants, scientists, and artists could meet as equals. Class didn't matter inside the lodge. A duke and a shopkeeper both started as entered apprentices. Both advanced through the same degrees. Both swore the same oaths. In societies where rigid hierarchy governed every interaction, this was radical. You could normally speak freely to someone above or below your station, but lodge knights suspended those rules. Inside those rooms, men discussed ideas, debated philosophy, and formed friendships impossible in the outside world. The rituals seemed mysterious but served practical purposes. Initiation began with the candidate blindfolded, symbolizing ignorance. He was led through ceremonies teaching moral lessons through architectural metaphor. The rough stone represents the unrefined man. The perfect ashlar represents the perfected self. Tools, the square, compass, level, became symbols for virtues, honesty, morality, equality. 3 degrees structured advancement. Entered apprentice, fellow craft, master mason. Each degree revealed more secrets. Though these weren't mystical knowledge, they were recognition signs, specific handshakes. The grip of an entered apprentice differed from a master mason. Secret words identifying your degree, ways of standing or gesturing that marked you as initiated. These signs had practical value. In an era where travel was dangerous and credit systems informal, a mason arriving in a strange city could identify fellow masons immediately. The secret handshake opened doors, literally. Lodge brothers provided lodging, business contacts, letters of introduction. The recognition system created an international network of trusted contacts, valuable when formal institutions were unreliable. Freemasonry spread rapidly, but differently across cultures. French Freemasonry became politically radical, lodges filling with philosophers and revolutionaries debating Enlightenment ideas. The French police knew this. In 1737 they raided a Paris lodge and arrested everyone, not for plotting, not for heresy, for something far more dangerous, men from different social classes treating each other as equals. The ancient regime understood what this meant: revolution. German Freemasonry turned philosophical. Lodges becoming discussion groups, exploring metaphysics, science, and religious reform. English Freemasonry remained more conservative, focused on charity and social networking. American Freemasonry blended all 3: philosophical discussion, political organizing, and mutual aid. The membership rolls read like history books. Voltaire, initiated at age 84 in Paris. Benjamin Franklin, who helped establish American Freemasonry. Wolfgang Mozart, whose opera The Magic Flute is essentially Masonic allegory. George Washington, who wore Masonic regalia for his presidential inauguration. Frederick the Great of Prussia, who made Freemasonry fashionable among European nobility. These aren't conspiracy theories. Membership records survive. Lodge minutes document attendance. Letters between Masons discuss their activities openly. We know who joined, when they joined, and often what they did in lodges. What they did was surprisingly mundane. Philosophical discussions, debates about reason, morality, the nature of existence, charitable work, funding orphanages, supporting widows, helping members who fell on hard times, networking, introducing members to business contacts, facilitating trade relationships, building social capital. And, yes, political organizing, particularly in places where censorship made public debate dangerous. In Austrian territories where Habsburg authorities suppressed free thought, Masonic lodges provided cover for discussing banned books and radical ideas. In American colonies chafing under British rule, lodges became coordination points for resistance. Not because Freemasonry itself was revolutionary, but because it provided safe spaces for free assembly and discussion. The physical evidence is substantial. Lodge buildings still stand across Europe and America, many preserved as museums. Ritual objects survive: ceremonial aprons, jewels, gavels, altars. Archives hold thousands of documents, correspondence, membership lists, financial records, ritual books. This isn't hidden history. It is well documented, but documentation didn't prevent conspiracy theories. The very existence of secrets, even benign recognition signs, made people suspicious. Anti-Masonic movements emerged claiming Masons controlled governments, manipulated economies, or practiced devil worship. Most accusations were baseless, projecting fears onto an organization that was more social club than sinister cabal. Yet Freemasonry did wield influence, just not the kind conspiracies imagine. The influence came through networking. When Masons held positions of power, and many did, they naturally helped fellow Masons. This created advantages, absolutely. But it wasn't conspiracy. It was the same nepotism and favoritism that exists in any tight-knit community. Freemasonry matters because it demonstrates what secret societies actually do versus what people imagine they do. The reality, creating spaces for cross-class interaction, facilitating philosophical discussion, building mutual aid networks, is less dramatic than conspiracy theories suggest. But it is historically significant. Freemasonry helped spread Enlightenment ideas, provided organizational models for other societies, and created international networks that influenced everything from scientific advancement to political revolutions. Lodge buildings, ritual objects, membership records, and correspondence provide a window into how secret societies function when we can actually study them, and what we see is human. Men seeking community, meaning, and connection. Men using organizational structures to achieve goals harder to accomplish alone. Men creating spaces where ideas could be explored freely. But Freemasonry's openness, its growth, its famous members, its public buildings, also made it a target for infiltration. In 1776, a Bavarian professor decided to create something different, a secret society that would be truly secret, operating within Freemasonry itself. He called it the Order of the Illuminati. Bavaria, May 1, 1776. While American colonists prepare to declare independence thousands of miles away, Adam Weishaupt gathers 4 friends in Ingolstadt. He is a law professor, 38 years old, frustrated by the intellectual climate suffocating Bavaria. Jesuits control the universities. The Elector's government suppresses free thought. Enlightenment ideas, reason, secularism, individual liberty are dangerous to express publicly. So Weishaupt decides to create a secret society. He calls it the Order of the Illuminati. The name promises illumination, enlightenment, hidden knowledge. 5 men total at that first meeting. 5 men who believe they can change the world through careful, secret coordination. Weishaupt's strategy is sophisticated. He 1T recruit randomly. He target educated, influential men, doctors, lawyers, writers, minor nobility, people positioned to affect public opinion and policy. He organize them in cellular structures where each member knows only their immediate superior and subordinates. If authorities arrest someone, they can betray the whole network because they don't know it. He creates elaborate code names. Weishaupt becomes Spartacus. Members take names from history and mythology. Cities get code names too. Munich becomes Athens. Vienna becomes Rome. Everything is encrypted. Letters use ciphers. Documents never identify people or places directly. The ranks sound mystical. Novice, Minival, Illuminatus Minor, Illuminatus Major. This isn't accident. Weishaupt understands psychology. Mystery attract. The promise of progressively revealed secrets keeps members engaged, always reaching for the next degree, the deeper knowledge. But here is the crucial tactic. Weishaupt encourages members to join existing Masonic lodges, not to replace Freemasonry, but to infiltrate it. Enter lodges, gain trust, slowly introduce Illuminati principles, convert Masons to the cause without them fully realizing it. Use Freemasonry's respectability as cover for more radical organizing. It works remarkably well. Within a decade, the Illuminati grows to perhaps 2,000 members spread across Bavaria, Austria, and surrounding German states. This isn't speculation. Membership lists survive in Bavarian archives. We know who joined. Duke Ferdinand of Brunswick, one of the most powerful nobles in Germany, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, already recognized as a literary genius, Johann Gottfried Herder, influential philosopher. These weren't fringe figures. They were establishment intellectuals attracted to Weishaupt's vision of rational reform. The documents that survive reveal an organization obsessed with secrecy and influence. Letters discuss strategies for placing members in government positions, universities, and churches. Plans outline how to shape public opinion through planted articles and orchestrated discussions. Organizational charts show the hierarchical structure, each level controlled by the one above, information flowing up but rarely down. This was real. The Illuminati existed. They had political goals. They used infiltration tactics. But here is where reality diverges sharply from legend. In 1784, remember that lightning strike from the opening. A courier carrying Illuminati documents rides through a storm. Lightning kills him instantly. Local authorities gather the scattered papers. When they read them, the code names, the secret plans, the infiltration strategies, they re-alarmed. This triggers investigation. The Bavarian government raids known Illuminati meeting places. They arrest members. They seize more documents. The elector issues edicts banning secret societies. By 1787, the Illuminati are essentially destroyed. Weishaupt flees Bavaria. Most members abandon the cause. The organization collapses. 11 years. That is how long the Illuminati actively operated. 11 years, 2,000 members at peak, and minimal measurable impact on actual events. They published no significant works, influenced no major legislation, changed no government policies. Their great infiltration of Freemasonry achieved little beyond making Masons suspicious of secret societies within secret societies. Then the French Revolution explodes in 1789, and conspiracy theorists discover a convenient scapegoat. The Illuminati must have caused it, they claim. Never mind that the organization had been defunct for 2 years. Never mind that French Freemasons had different origins and goals. Never mind the complete lack of evidence connecting Illuminati to revolutionary events. A French Jesuit, Augustin Barruel, publishes books claiming the Illuminati orchestrated everything: the revolution, the terror, the attack on monarchy and church. It is conspiracy theory as counter-revolutionary propaganda, blaming convenient villains rather than examining actual causes of revolution. The narrative sticks. Throughout the 19th century, every political upheaval gets blamed on Illuminati. They become the explanation for everything people fear: social change, loss of tradition, challenges to authority. The actual organization's brief, unsuccessful existence gets buried under layers of myth. The Illuminati existed for exactly 11 years. They never numbered more than 2,000 members. They accomplished almost nothing. Yet 250 years later, people believe they secretly control the world. How does a failed secret society become immortal? Because conspiracy theories need villains. Complex historical events, revolutions, economic changes, cultural shifts have complex causes. That is uncomfortable. It is easier to imagine hidden puppet masters controlling everything. The Illuminati provide a simple explanation for complicated reality, and because evidence of their brief existence gets misinterpreted, yes, they wanted to influence society. Documented fact. Yes, they used infiltration tactics, also documented. But wanting to influence and actually influencing are different. Attempting infiltration and succeeding at world domination are vastly different. The documents in Bavarian archives tell the real story. An ambitious professor creates an organization promoting Enlightenment values. It grows modestly, attracts some influential members, attempts to spread ideas through careful placement of sympathizers. Authorities discover it and shut it down within a decade. End of story. Except it is not the end. The Illuminati live forever in imagination, growing more powerful in legend than they ever were in reality. This reveals something crucial about secret societies. Their power in myth often exceeds their power in fact. Once people believe a secret society controls events, that belief itself becomes historical force, shaping how people interpret events, whom they trust, what actions they take. The Illuminati's greatest achievement wasn't what they did during their 11 years of existence. It was becoming the eternal scapegoat, the immortal conspiracy, the secret society that never dies because it was always more fiction than fact. The Illuminati's destruction didn't end secret society's influence on history. In fact, the late 18th century would see secret societies directly shape the most important political revolutions of the modern world. Revolutions that created the nations we live in today. When George Washington was inaugurated as first president on the 30th of April, 1789, the Bible he placed his hand upon belonged to St. John's Masonic Lodge in New York. When he laid the cornerstone of the U.S. Capitol building in 1793, he wore full Masonic regalia, apron, sash, and jewels, and performed a Masonic ritual before crowds of witnesses. This isn't conspiracy theory. The records exist. The regalia survives in museums. The photographs of later cornerstone ceremonies show the pattern continuing. The American Revolution was led substantially by Freemasons. Washington, obviously. Benjamin Franklin, who helped establish Freemasonry in Pennsylvania and served as Grand Master. John Hancock. Paul Revere. At least 9 signers of the Declaration of Independence were confirmed Masons. Probably more. Records from that era are incomplete. Masonic lodges in colonial America served functions beyond ritual and fellowship. They were meeting places where revolutionary sentiment could be discussed safely, away from British surveillance. In societies where speaking against the crown meant treason, lodges provided cover. Members trusted each other because of their oaths. Information shared within lodge walls stayed there. The Boston Tea Party participants likely included many Masons who knew each other through lodge networks. The coordination required, organizing men, maintaining secrecy, executing the plan, matched exactly how Masonic lodges functioned. Did Freemasonry plan the Tea Party? Did Masonic networks facilitate it? Almost certainly. Paul Revere's Midnight Ride is famous. Less known is how he organized the intelligence network that made it possible. Revere used his Masonic connections to establish observation posts, watching British movements. Fellow Masons served as couriers, safe houses, and coordination points. The famous 1 if by land, 2 if by sea signal system worked because trusted men were positioned throughout Boston, bound by more than patriotism, bound by brotherhood. But here is crucial nuance. Freemasonry didn't cause the American Revolution. Colonial grievances did. Taxation, representation, accumulated resentments over British policy. Freemasonry provided infrastructure that revolutionaries used, networks of trust, communication channels, meeting spaces, coordination mechanisms. These were tools. The revolution would have occurred without them, just less efficiently organized. Masonic principles, liberty, equality, fraternity, resonated with revolutionary rhetoric, but these ideas circulated widely through Enlightenment philosophy, not exclusively through lodges. Freemasonry was one channel among many through which revolutionary thought spread. France presents a more complex picture. By the 1780s, Masonic lodges in Paris had transformed into salons where Enlightenment philosophy flourished. Nobles, intellectuals, and wealthy bourgeoisie gathered in lodges to debate Voltaire, Rousseau, Montesquieu. Ideas that could be safely discussed in cafes or drawing rooms found voice behind lodge doors. The Jacobin Club, which drove the French Revolution's radical phase, evolved partially from these networks. Many Jacobins were Masons or had Masonic connections. The Revolution's famous slogan, liberty, equality, fraternity, was literally the Masonic motto, not coincidence. The revolutionaries drew explicitly from Masonic symbolism and principles. Yet here is bitter irony. The French Revolution eventually turned against Freemasonry. As the terror intensified, revolutionaries viewed all secret societies as potential counter-revolutionary threats. Lodges were closed, Masons were arrested. The very networks that helped incubate revolutionary ideas became victims of the revolution they fostered. This established a pattern that repeats throughout history. Secret societies often incubate revolutionary ideas, but lose control once revolution succeeds. The networks that start revolutions rarely govern afterward. Revolution unleashes forces beyond any organization's control. Ideas escape their origins. Movements radicalize beyond their founders' intentions. Secret societies provide spaces where heterodox ideas can develop, where dissatisfied individuals can coordinate, where revolutionary sentiment can build. But they don't control what happens when that sentiment explodes into open conflict. They're kindling, not the fire itself. The American and French revolutions created the modern democratic world. Secret societies played documented roles in both facilitative roles, not causative ones. They were threads in larger tapestries, important threads, but not the whole picture. Understanding this distinction matters. It is the difference between recognizing genuine historical influence and imagining omnipotent conspiracy. Secret societies influenced revolutions through the mundane work of networking, coordinating, and providing safe spaces for dangerous ideas, not through mystical power or puppet master control. The age of political revolution gave way to the age of industry and empire. As the 19th century dawned, secret societies would evolve alongside society itself, adapting to new technologies, new ideologies, and new opportunities for hidden influence. Naples, 1807. Napoleon. Armies occupy the city, and southern Italy chafes under French rule. In basement rooms and forest clearings, men begin meeting in secret. They call themselves carbonari, charcoal burners, adopting the language of a humble trade to mask revolutionary purpose. Their initiation rituals are elaborate, borrowed from Freemasonry, but adapted with Italian flavor. Candidates are blindfolded, led through symbolic trials, and sworn to secrecy under penalty of death. The oath is literal: betray the society, and brothers will find you. The organizational structure is cellular, small groups called vendite sales, continuing the charcoal merchant metaphor, operate independently. Each vendita knows only its immediate members and perhaps one contact in another cell. This compartmentalization makes infiltration difficult and suppression nearly impossible. Arrest one vendita, and the others continue operating. They develop coded language that sounds innocuous to outsiders. Selling coal means recruiting new members. Good cousins refers to fellow carbonari. The forest means Italy. Entire conversations about revolution can occur in public, disguised as discussions about commerce and family. Austrian and French police listen, but hear only mundane talk. When Napoleon falls and Austrian rule replaces French occupation, the carbonari Don T dissolve. They redirect. Now they fight for constitutional government and Italian independence from foreign control. The organization spreads rapidly, from Naples northward through Italian states, across borders into France, Spain, Portugal, Poland. Wherever authoritarian governments suppress political freedom, carbonari cells emerge. In 1821, Austrian police finally infiltrate the organization successfully. What they discover is terrifying. The carbonari have members in every Italian city, significant presence in Spain, France, and Poland. They aren't planning one revolution, they're replanning dozens, simultaneously. The coordination is sophisticated: coded correspondence, traveling coordinators, synchronized timing designed to overwhelm authorities who can suppress multiple uprisings at once. The 1820 Naples revolt begins with carbonari organizing military officers sympathetic to constitutional government. They force King Ferdinand to grant a constitution. It lasts exactly 1 year before Austrian troops restore absolute monarchy. The 1821 Piedmont uprising follows the same pattern: initial success, brief constitutional government, then foreign military intervention crushing the revolt. Most carbonari uprisings fail. Authorities are too strong, coordination imperfect, popular support insufficient. Captured members are hanged or imprisoned. Leaders flee into exile. By conventional measures, the carbonari achieved little, yet they maintained revolutionary pressure for decades. Each failed uprising proved that resistance was possible. Each execution created martyrs who inspired the next generation. The Carbonari network preserved revolutionary sentiment during periods when open opposition meant death. Who joined? Not the very wealthy or very poor. The Carbonari attracted the emerging middle class, shopkeepers who wanted economic freedom, army officers frustrated with foreign domination, university students excited by nationalist ideas, minor nobility excluded from real power. This demographic would drive 19th century political change across Europe. Giuseppe Mazzini, who became the intellectual voice of Italian unification, was Carbonari. His writings on nationalism and republicanism spread through Carbonari networks before reaching wider audiences. Louis Napoleon Bonaparte, nephew of the emperor, joined the Carbonari during his youth. When he eventually became Napoleon III of France, his early revolutionary experiences shaped his political thinking. By the 1860s, when Italy finally unified under Piedmont's leadership, many Risorgimento leaders had Carbonari backgrounds. The organizational experience, the networks of contacts, the shared commitment to Italian nationalism, these all derived partially from Carbonari membership. The society didn't achieve unification directly, but it created the human infrastructure that made unification possible. Then something interesting occurred. As nationalist movements became more open, as political parties formed to channel popular sentiment, the Carbonari dissolved, not through suppression, through obsolescence. When you can organize openly, secret societies lose purpose. The goals Carbonari had fought for in shadows became respectable political positions discussed in newspapers and debated in parliaments. The Carbonari dissolved through success. Their revolutionary ideas became mainstream politics. Constitutional government, national self-determination, limitation of monarchical power. These stopped being dangerous heresies and became negotiable political positions. The secret society was no longer necessary because its work was complete. This demonstrates something crucial about secret societies and political change. They don't need to win specific battles to influence history. They maintain pressure, preserve networks, and keep ideas alive during periods when those ideas are suppressed. When conditions finally allow change, the groundwork already exists. The people are already connected. The ideas are already developed. The Carbonari prove that failed revolutions aren't necessarily failures. Each attempt teaches lessons, strengthens networks, and proves that resistance is possible. Eventually, accumulated pressure breaks through. Authoritarian governments fall not from single strikes, but from sustained resistance across decades. While the Carbonari fought for political change, another type of secret society emerged in the 19th century, one concerned not with governments, but with hidden knowledge and mystical power. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn would become the most influential occult organization of the modern era. London, 1888. 3 men, a coroner, a museum curator, and a doctor, claim they've discovered ancient manuscripts revealing secrets of Egyptian magic, Kabbalistic mysticism, and alchemical transformation. They use these documents to found the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, a society promising to teach genuine occult knowledge through progressive degrees of initiation. In 1890s London, a poet, an actress, and an accountant would gather in a temple room to perform Egyptian rituals that hadn't been practiced for 2,000 years. Ridiculous, maybe, but this ridiculous group would influence the next century of literature, art, and spiritual seeking. The Golden Dawn structure was elaborate. 10 grades corresponding to positions on the Kabbalistic tree of life, each requiring months or years of study before advancement. Initiations involved complex ceremonies, blindfolding, symbolic journeys through elemental realms, oath-taking before elaborate altars. Members wore robes color, coded by rank, used magical implements consecrated through lengthy rituals, and studied texts synthesizing Egyptian, Greek, Jewish, and Christian mystical traditions into a coherent system. This sounds absurd to modern ears. Educated adults dressing in robes, drawing circles on floors, reciting elaborate invocations. Yet the membership roster reads like a who is who of late Victorian intellectual and artistic culture. William Butler Yeats, who would win the Nobel Prize for Literature, was deeply involved in Golden Dawn for decades. His poetry is saturated with its symbolism, the Jaya, the phases of the moon, Hermetic philosophy. Florence Farr, one of Victorian England's most acclaimed actresses, served as the Order's leader for years. Arthur Machen, whose horror fiction influenced Lovecraft and generations of weird fiction writers, was a dedicated member. Algernon Blackwood, another horror pioneer, found in the Golden Dawn the occult framework that structured his stories. And then there was Aleister Crowley, brilliant, megalomaniacal, deliberately provocative. He joined in 1898 and almost immediately began causing problems with his ambition and tendency towards scandal. But even Crowley's contributions to modern occultism trace back to Golden Dawn training, however much he later claimed to surpass it. These weren't gullible fools. They were intelligent, educated people, writers, artists, professionals, seeking something Victorian society didn't provide. The late 19th century was an era of spiritual crisis. Traditional Christianity seemed inadequate, its claims challenged by science and historical criticism. But pure scientific materialism felt empty, reducing consciousness to brain chemistry and meaning to evolutionary adaptation. The Golden Dawn offered a third path: approach spirituality with methodical, almost scientific rigor, study ancient wisdom traditions, practice techniques for developing consciousness, keep detailed records of experiments. The order appealed to people who wanted spiritual experience, but could accept religious dogma on faith alone. What did members actually do? They performed elaborate rituals, invocations of angels, banishings of spirits, pathworkings through symbolic landscapes. They studied obscure texts, the Kabbalah, Hermetic philosophy, alchemical manuscripts, Egyptian mythology. They practiced meditation and visualization techniques intended to expand consciousness. They created talismans, charged objects meant to focus intention and influence reality. Did it work? That depends on what work means. Members reported profound experiences, visions, synchronicities, psychological transformations. Whether these resulted from genuine contact with spiritual forces or from intensive self-programming of the unconscious mind is ultimately unprovable. But the experiences felt real to participants, and that reality shaped their creative output and philosophical thinking. The Golden Dawn's influence on modern Western occultism is undeniable. Nearly every magical tradition that emerged in the 20th century, Wicca, chaos magic, various neo-pagan movements, borrowed from Golden Dawn's synthesis and techniques. The Rider-Waite Tarot deck, still the most popular, was designed by Golden Dawn members and encodes their symbolic system. Ceremonial magic, as currently practiced, traces lineage directly to their innovations. Beyond occultism, the order influenced literature, art, and psychology. Yeats' poetry, obviously, but also the symbolist movement in art, surrealist exploration of the unconscious, and even Carl Jung's psychological theories. Jung studied Golden Dawn symbolism and incorporated their understanding of archetypes and symbols into his analytical psychology. Yet the order itself lasted barely 15 years in its original form. Personality conflicts tore it apart. Crowley's provocations alienated members. Samuel Mathers, who moved to Paris and claimed authority from mysterious secret chiefs, demanded absolute obedience. Some members believed in literal magic, others saw it as psychological symbolism. By 1903, the original Golden Dawn had fractured into competing successor groups, each claiming authentic lineage. But the fracturing didn't diminish the influence, it spread it. Splinter groups carried Golden Dawn teachings to new audiences. Members founded their own orders, published books making once secret knowledge available to anyone, and adapted the system for changing times. The Golden Dawn demonstrates something important about secret societies. They are not all about political power or economic control. Some function primarily as countercultural communities, spaces where people explore ideas outside mainstream acceptability. Victorian society didn't approve of occultism. Respectable people weren't supposed to believe in magic, but behind closed doors in private temple rooms, educated adults could experiment with practices and philosophies their society dismissed. Secret societies create protected spaces for heterodox thought. Sometimes that thought is political revolution, sometimes it is religious heresy, sometimes it is magical practice. The common thread is creating community around ideas or activities that mainstream society rejects or suppresses. The Golden Dawn's legacy lives on. Modern paganism, New Age spirituality, contemporary ceremonial magic all carry DNA from those Victorian temple rooms, where poets and actresses performed rituals they claimed were ancient Egyptian. Whether you find this inspiring or ridiculous depends on your perspective. But dismissing it as mere foolishness misses the point. For the people involved, it was meaningful. And meaning, even if based on questionable historical claims, can produce genuine cultural impact. The Golden Dawn's influence was cultural and spiritual. But at the same time, in China, a very different secret society was emerging. One that would launch a rebellion killing over 20 million people and nearly toppling an empire. A man failed a test, had a vision, started a cult. Within 5 years, he controlled a third of China and had launched a war that would kill more people than World War I, the Qing Emperor. Biggest mistake, laughing at him. Hong Shikan took the civil service examination 4 times. 4 times he failed. In Imperial China, this meant permanent exclusion from the educated elite, from government position, from respect. For someone who de-studied for years, invested everything in mastering Confucian classics. Failure was devastating. In 1837, after the third failure, Hong collapsed with fever. For 40 days he experienced visions. An old man with golden beard telling him to destroy demons. A middle-aged man teaching him how to slay evil spirits. When he recovered, Hong could explain the visions. Not until years later, when he encountered Christian missionary pamphlets, did the pieces click into place. The old man, God, the middle-aged man, Jesus Christ, and Hong himself, Jesus' younger brother, sent to establish God's kingdom on earth. This sounds like delusion. The Qing authorities certainly thought so, but Hong's message resonated with people who had reasons to listen. Poor farmers crushed by taxation. Miners working brutal conditions, ethnic minorities marginalized by the Han-dominated bureaucracy, groups suffering under a corrupt dynasty that seemed more interested in preserving its own power than serving the people. Hong founded the God-worshipping society, blending Christian theology from missionary texts with Chinese millennial traditions about coming transformations. He promised land redistribution, equality, and divine justice. His followers grew from dozens to hundreds to thousands. In 1851, Hong declared himself Heavenly King of the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom, the Kingdom of Great Peace. What had been a religious society became an open revolutionary movement. The Taipings captured cities, defeated Qing armies, and established their capital at Nanjing, one of China's great historic cities. At their peak, they controlled territory containing perhaps 30 million people. The Taiping ideology was revolutionary for 1850s China. Radical egalitarianism. All were brothers and sisters under God. Gender equality unprecedented in Chinese history. Women served as soldiers, administrators, and officials. Land redistribution. All land held collectively, distributed based on need. Prohibition of opium, foot, binding, slavery, prostitution, and tobacco. These weren't minor reforms. This was comprehensive social transformation. For over a decade, the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom governed large swaths of southern China, fielding armies of hundreds of thousands. The Qing dynasty, which had ruled since 1644, faced existential threat. The death toll was catastrophic. Between 20 and 30 million people died from battle, disease, famine, and Qing-scorched earth tactics. This makes the Taiping Rebellion possibly the deadliest conflict of the 19th century. more than the American Civil War, the Napoleonic Wars, and the Crimean War combined. Yet Western history courses rarely mention it. The rebellion ultimately failed. The Qing received military assistance from European powers who feared Taiping disruption of trade. Internal divisions fractured Taiping leadership. Hong's visions grew stranger, his demands more erratic. His generals began fighting each other. By 1864, Qing forces had recaptured Nanjing. Hong died, possibly by poison, possibly by suicide. The Taiping Heavenly Kingdom collapsed. This reveals a crucial pattern. Secret societies excel at resistance, operating in shadows, maintaining security, preserving commitment through small, tight-knit groups. But when they transform into open movements governing territory, they face entirely different challenges. Military logistics instead of operational security, bureaucratic administration instead of cellular organization, the difficulty of governing rather than merely resisting. The Taiping scaled from secret society to revolutionary government to an army fielding hundreds of thousands, but they lacked the institutional structures to sustain success. Their ideology was revolutionary, their military initially effective, their appeal to marginalized populations genuine. Yet they couldn't transition from movement to stable state. Secret societies can shake empires. They can launch rebellions that kill millions and threaten dynasties. But governing requires different skills than conspiring. The God-worshipping society proves that secret societies can achieve world historical importance, while simultaneously revealing their limitations when faced with the mundane challenges of statecraft. The 19th century proved that secret societies could still shake empires and reshape nations. But as the 20th century dawned, new technologies, telegraphs, telephones, photography, made secrecy harder than ever. How would secret societies adapt? The answer would be written in blood. The telegram was intercepted in January 1917. German Foreign Minister Arthur Zimmermann sent coded instructions to Mexico. If America enters the war, attack the United States, recover Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. British intelligence decoded it, leaked it to American newspapers, and public outrage helped push the United States into World War I. Decoded message changed everything. That is when governments realized something the Templars and Carbonari had known for centuries. Information wins wars as surely as armies do, perhaps more surely. After the Great War ended, major powers drew the same conclusion. Espionage couldn't be ad hoc anymore, improvised during crises, then disbanded during peace. It needed to be permanent, professional, institutionalized. Britain had already created the Secret Intelligence Service, MI6, in 1909, but expanded it dramatically after witnessing wartime intelligence success. The Soviet Union formed the Cheka in 1917, which evolved into the KGB. America resisted until World War II forced the issue, creating the Office of Strategic Services in 1942, which became the CIA in 1947. These agencies operated using principles secret societies had refined over millennia. Recruitment focused on elite educated individuals, Oxford and Cambridge for Britain, Ivy League universities for America, Communist Party loyalists for the Soviets. Why? Because secret societies always understood that intelligent, ideologically committed members maintain secrecy better than mercenaries motivated only by money. The organizational structure was cellular. Operatives knew only what they needed to know. Information flowed upward but rarely downward. Compromise one agent and the rest remained secure. The Carbonari had used identical compartmentalization a century earlier. Intelligence agencies just perfected it with 20th century bureaucracy. Security clearances created progressive degrees of access, confidential, secret, and beyond. Each level revealed more information, required deeper vetting, demanded stronger loyalty. This paralleled exactly how mystery cults and Masonic lodges structured progressive revelation through degrees. Same psychology, same method, different context. Oath taking remained central. Intelligence officers swore secrecy oaths as binding as any Templar or Illuminati member ever did. Break the oath, face prosecution under Official Secrets Acts, or worse, unofficial consequences. The oath created psychological commitment, transformed job into identity, bonded members through shared burden of secrecy. In 1963, Kim Philby stood in a Moscow apartment, toasting with KGB officers. For 30 years, he'd been one of British intelligence's top officers. He was also a Soviet spy. The oath taken at Cambridge in the 1930s, it wasn't to Britain, and he kept that secret through decades of the closest scrutiny imaginable. Philby was one of the Cambridge Five, British intelligence officers recruited by Soviet handlers while students at Cambridge University in the 1930s. They were motivated by ideology, believing communism represented humanity's future. They maintained their cover for decades using exactly the loyalty structures and compartmentalization the Bavarian Illuminati had pioneered. Each knew little about the others. Each reported to different handlers. Each passed information upward while maintaining impeccable public personas. This wasn't unique. Intelligence agencies discovered what secret societies always knew. Ideology motivates better than money. In-group identity creates loyalty, and compartmentalization protects networks. They studied historical secret societies not as conspiracy theories but as organizational case studies. How did the Carbonari maintain security? How did Freemasons create international trust networks? How did early Christians survive systematic persecution? Intelligence agencies absorbed these lessons and applied them with state resources. The OSS recruited heavily from Yale, Skull and Bones and similar elite societies during World War II, not coincidence. These organizations had already vetted members for discretion, loyalty, and competence. They created bonds through shared ritual and secret knowledge. Intelligence agencies essentially recruited from existing secret societies, leveraging their organizational work. Cold War espionage became secret societies fighting through proxies. Networks of covert operatives followed orders from hidden masters, coordinated across borders, maintained cover identities, and pursued goals the public never knew existed. Exactly like conspiracy theories imagine secret societies operating. The difference? These were real, documented, and state-sanctioned. Declassified documents prove the scale. CIA's Operation Ajax in 1953 overthrew Iran's democratically elected government. British and American intelligence coordinated the coup through networks of paid agents, sympathetic military officers, and orchestrated street protests. The public saw spontaneous uprising. The reality was carefully planned operation by hidden hands. The KGB placed agents throughout Western governments, influencing policy from within. Mossad operated globally, tracking and eliminating perceived threats to Israel with ruthless efficiency. China's Ministry of State Security, Pakistan, SE, France, SDGSE. Every major nation created organizations operating in shadows, using techniques secret societies had developed over centuries. The irony is complete. Governments that historically suppressed secret societies because they threatened state control created their own secret societies, vastly more powerful than any Illuminati or Templar order. Intelligence agencies had unlimited budgets, legal protection, state authority, and technological resources historical secret societies could never imagine. The most effective secret societies of the 20th century weren't mystical orders meeting in candlelit rooms. They were bureaucratic agencies with headquarters buildings, pension plans, and congressional oversight. Secret societies that went professional, trading robes for suits, replacing ritual with tradecraft, but maintaining the essential elements: secrecy, hierarchy, compartmentalization, and the pursuit of hidden goals. Intelligence agencies represented the professionalization of secrecy, secret societies with state backing. But the 20th century also saw traditional secret societies persist, adapting to the modern world while maintaining their ancient rituals. The Freemasons, in particular, would face their greatest challenge: remaining relevant in an age of transparency. In Auschwitz, among the political prisoners and resistance fighters were men wearing inverted red triangles, Freemasons. Hitler hated them enough to exterminate them. Stalin agreed. What did these lodge members know that terrified dictators? Nothing, actually. That was the problem. Dictators don't fear knowledge, they fear organization outside their control. Nazi Germany banned Freemasonry in 1933, immediately after Hitler took power. The Gestapo raided lodges, confiscated records, seized property. Masonic membership became grounds for arrest. Thousands of German Masons ended up in concentration camps, identified by those inverted red triangles marking them as political prisoners. Hitler's anti-Masonic paranoia was documented and intense. He saw Freemasonry as part of a grand Jewish Masonic conspiracy controlling democracies. The fact that this conspiracy didn't exist didn't matter. The perception justified persecution. The Soviet Union took similar action. Lenin initially tolerated Freemasonry as bourgeois foolishness. But by the 1920s, Stalin's regime considered any autonomous organization dangerous. Lodges were closed. Members were executed during the purges or sent to gulags. Masonry represented everything communism opposed: hierarchy based on merit rather than class, international connections transcending state borders, and rituals preserving pre-revolutionary traditions. Franco's Spain banned Freemasonry in 1940. Mussolini's Italy did the same across Europe. Totalitarian regimes of both left and right identified Freemasonry as threat. Why? Because it represented what dictatorships cannot tolerate: voluntary association outside state supervision, loyalty to principles above the party, and networks spanning national boundaries. Freemasonry embodied Enlightenment values: individual liberty, reason, tolerance, equality of members regardless of birth. These ideas were fundamentally incompatible with totalitarianism, so Masons died. Tens of thousands during World War II alone. Not for conspiring against states, but for belonging to organizations that operated independently. Then the war ended. Western democracies defeated fascism. You think Freemasonry would thrive in the post-war era? Vindication of its values, martyrs to honor, new members inspired by resistance to tyranny. Instead, Freemasonry faced a different threat: irrelevance. As Western society liberalized, Masonic lodges seemed increasingly archaic. Why join a secret society for philosophical discussion when universities admitted anyone with qualifications? Why need secret networking when professional associations existed openly? The exclusivity that once made Freemasonry appealing began feeling outdated in democratizing societies. The demographic crisis was stark. Younger generations didn't join. Veterans returning from World War II briefly swelled membership in the 1950s, but their children showed little interest. By the 1970s and 1980s, lodges were graying. Average member age climbed past 60, then 70. Lodges closed for lack of attendance. Grand buildings were sold off or converted to other uses. Some lodges attempted modernization, simplified rituals, dropped archaic language, allowed discussion of religion and politics previously forbidden, reached out to younger demographics through community service and publicity. Others doubled down on tradition, arguing that abandoning ancient rituals for contemporary relevance meant losing what made Freemasonry meaningful in the first place. Freemasonry retained influence in specific contexts: British politics, where Masonic connections still mattered in certain constituencies and professions; Caribbean nations, where Masonic lodges remained important social institutions; certain professional networks, police, judiciary, military, where Masonic membership created informal bonds. But the sweeping influence conspiracy theorists imagined, that had waned significantly, yet conspiracy theories persisted. Even as actual Masonic influence declined, accusations of Masonic control intensified. This demonstrates something crucial about secret society mythology. It outlives reality. Once people believe a secret society controls events, that belief continues regardless of evidence. The very secrecy that once granted advantage now fueled suspicion divorced from facts. Modern Freemasonry is profoundly different from its 18th century origins. Today, lodges are primarily charitable social clubs. They fund hospitals, provide scholarships, organize community events. The secrets available on Wikipedia, the rituals performed in buildings that host public tours, the mysterious handshakes easily found online. Membership continues declining in most Western nations. In Britain, Masonic membership peaked around 1960 at roughly 600,000. By 2020, it had fallen to perhaps 200,000. Similar patterns appear across Europe and North America. Lodges struggle to attract younger members in an age where exclusivity seems elitist and ritual community feels unnecessary. Yet, Freemasonry persists. Smaller, older, less influential, but not extinct. This suggests something about human nature. The need for ritual community, for bonds based on shared experience, rather than commercial transaction, for connection to traditions stretching back centuries. These needs transcend rational utility. Freemasonry survives not because it is useful in the way it once was, but because it fulfills psychological and social needs that modern society does otherwise provide. The 20th century taught Freemasonry a harsh lesson. Secret societies can become obsolete, not through suppression, but through social change, making secrecy unnecessary. When the world opens up, when information flows freely, when anyone can organize publicly, the advantages secrecy once granted disappear. While traditional secret societies struggled with modernization, new forms of hidden influence were emerging. Organizations that didn't call themselves secret societies, but functioned exactly like them. Elite clubs, policy councils, and informal networks would shape the late 20th century as surely as any Masonic lodge shaped the 18th. Every year, 150 of the most powerful people on Earth, prime ministers, CEOs, media moguls, royalty, gather at a hotel. No phones, no press, no minutes kept. When they leave, they say nothing. This is medieval history. This happened last year, and next year, it will happen again. The Bilderberg Group began in 1954 at the Hotel de Bilderberg in the Netherlands. Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands, concerned about growing anti-American sentiment in Europe during the Cold War, convened European and American leaders for informal discussion. The format worked so well they made it annual. The rules are strict. Attendance by invitation only, no minutes recorded. Participants may discuss what they learned but cannot attribute statements to specific individuals. The Chatham House rule, no media allowed inside. What is discussed stays private. The attendee list reads like a power directory: prime ministers and presidents, central bank governors and finance ministers, CEOs of multinational corporations, media executives, academics from elite universities, tech industry leaders. They gather for 3 days, discuss global issues, then disperse. Officially, nothing binding is decided. It is just conversation. Conspiracy theorists see something more sinister. They claim Bilderberg selects presidents, orchestrates economic crises, plans wars, and coordinates global governance. The evidence: the meetings are secret, attendees are powerful, and therefore they must be plotting something nefarious. Here is what we actually know. Attendance is documented. Participant lists are eventually published. General topics are announced: economic policy, technology, international relations. And yes, powerful people meet privately to discuss issues affecting the world. That is verified fact. What we don't know is specific content of discussions. No recordings exist. No detailed minutes are released. We can verify what particular individuals said or what agreements, if any, were reached. The opacity invites speculation. But Bilderberg isn't unique. Similar organizations operate with varying degrees of publicity. The Council on Foreign Relations in New York hosts discussions among American foreign policy elites. Members include government officials, academics, business leaders, and journalists. They publish a journal, hold public events, but also conduct private meetings where candid discussion occurs without media scrutiny. The Trilateral Commission, founded in 1973, brings together leaders from North America, Europe, and Asia to discuss common challenges. Again, membership is exclusive, meetings are private, and influence is undeniable. Many members go on to high government positions. The World Economic Forum in Davos differs slightly. It is more public, media attends certain sessions, and the spectacle is part of the point. Yet private meetings occur alongside public panels. The real networking happens in closed rooms, not on live-streamed stages. Various private clubs continue the tradition. Bohemian Grove in California, where powerful men gather annually for 2 weeks of networking and theatrical performances. The Bilderberg meetings themselves, invitation-only gatherings at exclusive resorts. These aren't tea conspiracies. They re-networking events for people who run major institutions. What do these groups actually do? They provide forums for powerful people to discuss ideas candidly without worrying about public misinterpretation or media distortion. They build personal relationships that facilitate business deals and political cooperation. They coordinate approaches to common problems, not through binding decisions, but through shared understanding that emerges from discussion. This isn't conspiracy, it is networking. But it is opaque, undemocratic, and grants influence based on wealth and position rather than election or merit. When decisions affecting billions are discussed by invitation, only groups meeting in secret, legitimate concerns arise about accountability and representation. The philosophical question is genuine. Is private coordination by elites inherently problematic? Or is it simply how complex societies function? Governments can coordinate everything through formal diplomatic channels. Markets don't self-organize perfectly. Perhaps informal networks where leaders discuss issues frankly serve necessary functions. Critics argue these groups represent unaccountable power, decisions made by unelected elites affecting everyone but visible to none. Defenders counter, they're just discussion forums with no enforcement power. Attendees return to their institutions and act independently. Agreement at Bilderberg doesn't create obligation. Both positions contain truth. These networks clearly influence thinking. When powerful people gather, discuss issues, and reach informal consensus, that shapes subsequent decisions even without formal coordination. But influence isn't the same as control. Bilderberg attendees disagree frequently. No single agenda unites them beyond maintaining systems that benefit existing elites. The pattern is ancient. Secret societies have always been about network effects. Who you know matters as much as what you know. Modern elite groups simply made this explicit and professional. They stripped away mystical ritual, replaced robes with business suits, but maintained the essential function, creating exclusive networks where influence circulates among members. Elite networks show that secret societies didn't disappear. They evolved into forms acceptable to modern sensibilities. But the 21st century would bring an even more radical transformation. Digital technology would create new possibilities for secrecy and new communities operating entirely in the shadows. In 1993, a programmer posted a manifesto online. Privacy is necessary for an open society in the electronic age. 20 years later, that programmer Stream would be reality, and governments worldwide would be terrified, because by then, Bitcoin had been invented and no one knew who created it. The cypherpunk mailing list began in 1992. Eric Hughes, Timothy May, and John Gilmore, programmers and cryptographers in the San Francisco Bay Area, created a forum where technically sophisticated people could discuss a problem they saw coming: total surveillance in the digital age. They understood something most people didn't yet grasp. As communication moved online, as transactions became digital, as life itself migrated to electronic networks, every action would leave traces. Governments and corporations would have unprecedented ability to monitor, track, and control. Privacy wouldn't disappear dramatically through authoritarian decree. It would evaporate gradually through technical infrastructure that made surveillance effortless. The cypherpunks proposed a solution: cryptography. Strong encryption that governments could break, that protected communication from surveillance, that made privacy a technical reality rather than legal privilege. They believed code could achieve what laws and constitutions couldn't: genuine protection against those who would monitor everything. Their principles were radical for the time. Strong encryption should be freely available to everyone, not restricted to governments and militaries. Anonymous communication is a human right, not suspicious behavior requiring justification. Digital cash should exist free from government control, allowing transactions without permission or monitoring. And crucially, code is speech. Writing encryption programs is political expression protected by the First Amendment. They weren't just theorizing, they built tools. Phil Zimmermann created PGP, pretty good privacy. Encryption software so effective that the US government investigated him for allegedly violating arms export controls by publishing it online. The government treated strong encryption as a weapon, and in a sense they were right. PGP gave individuals defensive capability against surveillance that governments wanted monopolized. Anonymous remailers appeared, allowing email to be sent without revealing sender identity. These weren't just toys for paranoids. They protected dissidents in authoritarian nations, whistleblowers exposing corruption, and anyone who needed to communicate without surveillance. The Tor network emerged from research by cypherpunk-influenced developers. Originally designed to protect military communications, it became publicly available software that routes internet traffic through multiple encrypted layers, making surveillance nearly impossible. Today, millions use Tor: journalists, activists, criminals, and ordinary people who believe privacy matters. Early cryptocurrency concepts circulated on cypherpunk lists throughout the 1990s. David Chaum proposed digital cash systems. Wei Dai outlined money. Nick Szabo described BitGold. These were technical experiments exploring how to create money controlled by mathematics rather than governments, transactions that could be censored, seized, or monitored. The cypherpunk movement operated as a new kind of secret society. No formal membership, no hierarchy, no initiation, rituals, or oath-taking ceremonies, just shared values and technical knowledge. If you understood cryptography, could write code, and believed in their principles, you were cypherpunk. If you didn't understand the mathematics, you were excluded, not through deliberate gatekeeping, but through technical barriers that served the same function medieval guilds' secret techniques did. This was secrecy through expertise rather than ritual, the most effective kind. Then, in October 2008, a paper appeared on a cryptography mailing list: Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system by Satoshi Nakamoto. It described a cryptocurrency using blockchain technology to eliminate the need for trusted third parties. No banks, no governments, just mathematics and distributed consensus. The cypherpunk dream made real: money that could be controlled, seized, or monitored by authorities. Transactions occurring peer-to-peer without permission from any institution. The system was elegant, revolutionary, and actually worked when Satoshi released the code in January 2009. But here is where it becomes perfect cypherpunk legend. Satoshi Nakamoto disappeared in 2011. Never revealed their identity. Might be one person or a group, could be anyone. The creator of the first successful cryptocurrency, now worth hundreds of billions, remained anonymous, practicing the principles the system was built to enable. Edward Snowden's 2013 revelations proved the cypherpunks weren't paranoid. The NSA was collecting everything: emails, phone records, internet traffic, location data. The surveillance state they warned about existed, operating in shadows, monitoring millions without warrants or oversight. But the cypherpunks had also been building. The tools they created, encryption, anonymous communication, cryptocurrency, suddenly became relevant to mainstream audiences who previously considered privacy concerns as paranoia. Millions downloaded Tor, Signal, and other privacy tools. Bitcoin exploded in value as people recognized the utility of money beyond government control. The political implications are complex. Cryptocurrency protects dissidents from authoritarian governments that freeze bank accounts to silence opposition, but it also enables ransomware, money laundering, and black markets. Anonymous communication protects journalists in dangerous places, but it also shields criminals and terrorists from surveillance. The cypherpunks never claimed moral simplicity. They argued that tools enabling freedom inevitably enable crime, and that is acceptable cost. You can have freedom and perfect security. Choosing security means accepting control. They chose freedom. Digital technology enabled new forms of secret societies, distributed across the world, organized around code rather than ritual, anonymous yet coordinated. The cypherpunks proved that secret societies could exist without meetings, without knowing each other's identities, without formal structure. Shared values and technical capability were sufficient. The cypherpunks dreamed of anonymous freedom, but another digital group would use anonymity for very different purposes: chaos, disruption, and what they called for the lulz. Anonymous had arrived. In 2010, a teenager in his bedroom, a hacker in Stendo Polo, and a systems administrator in London launched a coordinated attack that brought down corporate websites worth billions. They never met, didn't know each other's names, but they were all anonymous. How do you fight an enemy with no leadership, no structure, no membership list? Anonymous emerged from 4chan, an image board where users post without creating accounts. The site assigns everyone the default name, Anonymous. What began as technical default became collective identity. By 2003, users started referring to themselves as anonymous, not as individuals, but as a hive mind, a swarm, a concept rather than organization. Initially, it was trolling for entertainment, raiding online games, pranking people, creating chaos for amusement. What 4chan called doing it for the lulz. Juvenile, often cruel, but apolitical. Just bored internet users with technical skills and too much time. Then, in 2008, something shifted. The Church of Scientology tried to suppress a Tom Cruise video circulating online. Anonymous responded with Project Chanology, distributed denial of service attacks against Scientology websites, prank calls flooding their phone lines, and street protests where participants wore Guy Fawkes masks from the film V for Vendetta. The masks became Anonymous' symbol. Suddenly, Anonymous had purpose beyond entertainment. They discovered they could coordinate against targets they deemed worthy of disruption. The collective developed a vague political consciousness: anti-censorship, anti-authority, pro-information, freedom. Not coherent ideology exactly, more like shared instincts. The operations escalated. In 2010, when PayPal, Visa, and MasterCard stopped processing donations to WikiLeaks, Anonymous launched Operation Payback. Distributed denial of service attacks brought down corporate websites. Thousands participated, coordinating through internet relay chat channels, overwhelming servers with traffic until they crashed. In 2011, Anonymous leaked emails from security firm HBG Federal after the company claimed it had identified anonymous leaders. The leak revealed Hackery's plans to target journalist Glenn Greenwald and other critics of corporate and government power. The irony was perfect. A company claiming to understand Anonymous was humiliated by it. Sony's PlayStation Network went down in 2011. Various government websites were defaced. Anonymous declared support for Arab Spring protests, Occupy Wall Street, and other movements challenging established power. Operations occurred across continents, sometimes coordinated, sometimes spontaneous. Here is the paradox: Anonymous has no membership. Anyone can claim to be anonymous. There is no vetting, no hierarchy, no formal structure, yet coordinated actions happen. How? Through something like emergent organization. Individuals propose operations on forums or chat channels. If enough people think it is a good idea, they participate. No one commands, no one controls. It is collective action without leadership, democracy without structure, mob without hierarchy. This makes anonymous nearly impossible to destroy through traditional means. Law enforcement can arrest individuals who participated in specific operations. They did. Dozens were prosecuted for DDoS attacks, hacking and information leaks. But arresting individuals doesn't stop Anonymous, because Anonymous isn't those individuals. It is the idea that anyone can be anonymous. Try infiltrating Anonymous, and you discover there is nothing to infiltrate. No inner circle to penetrate, no leadership to identify, no organizational chart to map. It is a brand, an identity, a method, not an organization in any conventional sense. Law enforcement faced genuine frustration. Arrest one hacker who brought down a website, and 10 others you didn't identify also participated. Shut down one communication channel and they moved to another. The FBI could win individual battles, but struggled to end the phenomenon. By 2012, Anonymous' focus fragmented. Key operators were arrested. The collective attention drifted to different causes. Operations became less frequent and less sophisticated. It seemed Anonymous was fading, but the model persisted. Anonymous itself occasionally resurges during protests, in response to particular events. The concept influenced other movements, leaderless cryptocurrency development communities, decentralized political organizing, various online collectives operating without formal structure. Anonymous proved that digital technology enables genuinely leaderless organization, something impossible in pre-internet eras when coordination required hierarchy. Secret societies always needed someone in charge, even if that someone was hidden. Anonymous showed you could coordinate without anyone in charge, creating collective action through shared identity and technical capability alone. Anonymous showed that digital technology could create new forms of collective secrecy, but it also revealed the vulnerability of such groups to infiltration and surveillance. The next generation would need to be more careful, more encrypted, more dark. For 2 years, the FBI searched for the man running the biggest drug market in history. They knew he was American. They knew his username, but they could find him because he designed his marketplace, using principles secret societies had perfected over centuries: anonymity, compartmentalization, and trust without identity. Ross Ulbricht launched Silk Road in February 2011. The concept was simple but revolutionary. A marketplace accessible only through Tor, the anonymity network where buyers and sellers could trade anything without revealing identities. Payments in Bitcoin ensured financial anonymity, the primary commodity. Illegal drugs, but Ulbricht didn't see it as criminal enterprise. He saw it as libertarian experiment. His username, Dread Pirate Roberts, borrowed from The Princess Bride, signaled his philosophy. Silk Road was voluntary exchange without government interference. Adults choosing what to put in their bodies. No violence, no coercion, just commerce between consenting parties. The mechanics were sophisticated. Vendors created profiles with ratings and reviews like any e-commerce site. Buyers browsed listings, placed orders, and sent Bitcoin to escrow accounts. Only when products arrived did payment release to vendors. Disputes were resolved through arbitration. The system created functional underground economy operating entirely outside state control. At its peak, Silk Road facilitated millions in monthly transactions, thousands of vendors, tens of thousands of buyers, a complete marketplace ecosystem existing in digital shadows, invisible to authorities who knew it existed but could shut it down. But Silk Road was more than marketplace. Forums buzzed with discussion, not just about drugs but philosophy, libertarian politics, crypto, anarchism. Users debated drug policy, personal freedom, and the legitimacy of laws criminalizing consensual behavior. It was simultaneously commerce and ideology, marketplace and movement. A digital secret society bound by shared rejection of drug prohibition and belief in unregulated exchange. The FBI hunted Dread Pirate Roberts obsessively. They knew Silk Road's server infrastructure used Tor. They knew transactions used Bitcoin. They knew the site operated successfully. Despite their awareness, traditional investigation methods failed against sophisticated encryption and anonymity. Ulbricht's mistake was human, not technical. He de-posted about Silk Road under his real name on a programming forum years earlier. Before learning operational security, patient FBI investigation traced that digital breadcrumb back through deleted posts and archived websites. In October 2013, they arrested him in a San Francisco library, laptop open to Silk Road's admin panel. The philosophical debate his case sparked continues. Libertarians argued Silk Road harmed no one. Adults voluntarily trading with adults. Prosecutors noted that several deaths were linked to drugs purchased there. Both positions hold truth difficult to reconcile. Silk Road's closure didn't end dark web markets. Dozens emerged immediately. Silk Road 2.0, Alphabet, Hansa, Dream Market. Law enforcement plays whack-a-mole, shutting markets only to see others sprout. The model proves resilient because demand exists for anonymous commerce, and technology enables it. The broader dark web ecosystem extends beyond drugs, weapons markets, hacking services, leaked databases, counterfeit documents, and yes, darker content we acknowledge without detailing. Spaces where human depravity manifests without oversight. Does the dark web enable freedom or facilitate crime? The answer is both, inseparably. Technologies protecting dissidents from authoritarian surveillance also shield criminals from legitimate law enforcement. You can have one without the other. Strong encryption doesn't distinguish between good guys and bad guys. It protects everyone equally. Dark web markets represent secret societies of the digital age, global, anonymous, organized around shared rejection of conventional authority. They demonstrate that as long as technology enables secrecy and humans desire things government prohibits, underground economies will exist. Medieval guilds protected trade secrets. Dark web markets protect traders' identities. The method evolved, the principle remains constant. The digital age created new possibilities for secret organization, but it didn't eliminate traditional secret societies. In fact, some of history's oldest societies continue operating today, adapted to modern times, but maintaining rituals centuries old. It is time to ask, what do modern secret societies actually do? Every year, 15 college students are invited to join an organization that has produced 3 presidents, dozens of senators, and countless business leaders. The price? They can never tell anyone what happens inside their windowless headquarters ever, under any circumstances, and they don't. Skull and Bones was founded at Yale in 1832. The selection process, tapping, occurs each spring. 15 seniors chosen based on criteria that remain deliberately opaque. Leadership matters, achievement helps. But family connections carry weight too. If your grandfather was Skull and Bones, your odds improve considerably. Those selected gain access to the tomb, a windowless sandstone building on Yale's campus that looks more like a mausoleum than a clubhouse. What happens inside stays inside, protected by oaths members take seriously enough that a century and a half later, most still refuse to discuss it. But some details have leaked. Initiation reportedly involves lying in a coffin while recounting your complete sexual history to fellow initiates. Strange, absolutely, but psychologically effective. Sharing intimate secrets creates powerful bonds. Vulnerability builds trust. Once you've revealed your deepest secrets to 14 strangers, they were no longer strangers. Weekly meetings throughout senior year include philosophical discussions, debates, and rituals that blend the serious with the absurd. Upon graduation, members gain lifetime access to a network spanning generations. The tomb becomes available whenever you are in New Haven. Alumni gatherings occur regularly. And most importantly, when you need help, a job recommendation, a business introduction, a political endorsement, fellow bonesmen are expected to assist. The membership roster reads like American Power Directory. 3 presidents: William Howard Taft, George Bush, George W. Bush, Supreme Court justices, cabinet secretaries, CIA directors, corporate CEOs from banking, media and technology, journalists, diplomats. The list continues. Does this mean Skull and Bones controls America? Number that is conspiracy thinking, but here is what is true. It is a networking organization for people who were likely to become powerful anyway. Yale selects ambitious, capable students. Skull and Bones selects the most ambitious and capable among them. Many would have succeeded without membership, but membership helps. The mechanism is self-reinforcing. Successful members help younger members. A bonesman running an investment bank preferentially hires bonesmen. A senator's recommendation letter carries weight for a bonesman applicant. A CEO makes introductions that open doors. Each generation benefits from previous generations' success, then pays forward by helping the next. This creates a cycle of privilege. If you are Yale class of 2025 and you are tapped, you gain immediate access to networks built over nearly 2 centuries. That is valuable, arguably unfair. Definitely exclusive. Yale isn't unique. Harvard has final clubs, Porcellian Ad, Fly, and others that operate similarly. Exclusive membership, secret rituals, powerful alumni networks. Princeton's eating clubs serve comparable functions, though less secretive. Georgetown, Cornell, various elite institutions maintain societies following the same model. The criticism is obvious. These organizations perpetuate inequality. They old boys networks. Literally, many excluded women until recently, some still do. They advantage people who already have advantages. If you are wealthy enough to attend Yale, connected enough to get tapped, you gain additional networks unavailable to equally talented people at state universities. Yet they also reveal something true about how power actually works. Personal relationships matter. Trust matters. Shared experiences, even bizarre secret rituals, create bonds that facilitate cooperation. When you need someone you can trust absolutely, you call someone who shared your initiation, who knows your secrets, who is bound by the same oaths. Is this problematic? Yes. Is it illegal? No. Conspiratorial? Not really. It is just human networks made visible through institutional structure. Every industry has informal networks where opportunities circulate among insiders. Skull and Bones simply formalizes what happens informally everywhere. The society's power has declined as universities expanded and diversified. When Yale admitted only wealthy Protestant men, Skull and Bones members represented a narrow, interconnected elite. Today's Yale is larger, more diverse, more meritocratic. 15 members per year matter less when the student body numbers thousands from varied backgrounds. Still, they persist. Smaller influence than legends suggest, but influence nonetheless. They remind us that even in supposedly meritocratic systems, who you know remains nearly as important as what you know. Elite university societies show how traditional secret societies adapted to modern America, trading mystical secrets for social capital. But across the Atlantic, European secret societies took a different path, maintaining ancient rituals while fading into cultural irrelevance. In 2019, a man in Germany performed a ritual that hadn't changed in 200 years. He wore robes designed in the 1780s, spoke words written by men who knew Napoleon, and advanced to a degree system created when Mozart was alive. Then he took off the robes, went home, and checked his email. Modern esotericism, ancient rituals, zero power. Walk into a temple room of the Ordo Templi Orientis in London, or a Rosicrucian chapter house in Amsterdam, or a Memphis, Misraim Masonic Lodge in Paris, and you'll witness ceremonies that would be recognizable to practitioners from a century ago. Candles still burn on altars arranged in geometric patterns. Members still wear elaborate regalia, robes in specific colors denoting rank, jewels indicating office. sashes marked with symbols only initiates understand. Words are still spoken in precise order, following scripts preserved in handwritten manuscripts. What motivates someone to join such organizations today? The answers vary. Some seek genuine spiritual experience, believing these rituals access something real, whether you call it divine forces, archetypal energies, or structured consciousness exploration. Others enjoy historical reenactment, finding satisfaction in performing ceremonies exactly as they were done centuries ago, preserving living traditions against cultural amnesia. Many appreciate finding intellectual community around esoteric subjects, Kabbalah, alchemy, Hermetic philosophy, topics mainstream society dismisses, but which fascinate those drawn to Western mystery traditions. The typical path involves years of commitment. You study dense texts, 18th century alchemical treatises, Victorian grimoires, medieval Kabbalistic commentaries. You memorize ritual scripts, sometimes dozens of pages. You attend meetings where you participate in ceremonies, gradually advancing through degree systems that can take decades to complete fully. The Ordo Templi Orientis has 11 primary degrees. Some Rosicrucian orders have even more. Scottish Rite Freemasonry technically has 33, though most members don't pursue them all. The reality is humbling. These organizations have minimal social power. Memberships are tiny, usually dozens of active members per chapter, sometimes a few hundred in entire national organizations. They influence nothing beyond their members' personal development and perhaps local esoteric communities. No politicians defer to them. No business deals get made in their temple rooms. No conspiracies are hatched. Yet they preserve something valuable. The libraries these orders maintain contain manuscripts on alchemy that universities don't collect. Medieval grimoires that scholars can access for research, correspondence between 19th century occultists that documents intellectual movements historians study. For academics researching Western esotericism, these groups function as living museums, keeping knowledge accessible that might otherwise disappear. But there is a problem. Walk into most meetings and you notice immediately everyone is old. Many members are 60, 70, 80. Young people rarely join. The elaborate rituals, the time commitment, the archaic language, these don't appeal to generations raised on rapid digital communication and immediate gratification. This raises genuine questions about survival. Will these traditions persist through the 21st century? Or will they die with their current practitioners, becoming historical curiosities documented in books, but no longer practiced by living communities? Some orders attempt modernization, simplified ceremonies, online components, reduced time commitments. Others insist preservation requires maintaining everything exactly as inherited, arguing that changing rituals to attract modern sensibilities destroys what makes them meaningful. Both approaches struggle. Modernizers lose the appeal of authentic historical continuity. Traditionalists watch membership age and dwindle without replacement. These European orders reveal secret societies, evolution across centuries. From centers of power influencing monarchs and shaping revolutions, they've become cultural artifacts, interesting but marginal, preserved by dedicated enthusiasts, but irrelevant to broader society. They no longer threats to governments or influences on history. They curiosities, living museums where people maintain traditions because preservation itself feels meaningful, regardless of external impact. These European orders maintain visible continuity with historical secret societies, but the most powerful modern organizations, following secret society models, don't advertise themselves as such. They professional networks, policy groups, and exclusive clubs that shape our world while remaining largely invisible to public scrutiny. Every summer, some of the world's most powerful men gather in a forest to watch a theatrical performance and burn an effigy in front of a 40-foot concrete owl. This sounds like conspiracy theory. It is documented fact. The question is, does it matter? Bohemian Grove sits in Monte Rio, California, 2,700 acres of ancient redwoods owned by the Bohemian Club. For 2 weeks each July, approximately 2,000 men gather. Presidents have attended, CEOs, cabinet members, media moguls, military brass. The membership list reads like a directory of American power. They perform theatrical productions. They give talks called lakeside chats, where policy gets discussed off record. And yes, they conduct the cremation of care, a ceremony where an effigy representing worldly concerns is burned before a 40-foot concrete owl representing wisdom. It is theatre, symbolism, ritual. Photos exist. Former members have described it. This happens. Does it matter? That depends on what troubles you more, that powerful people gather privately, or that we know about it but can't observe what is actually discussed. Bohemian Grove isn't unique, it is just the most theatrical example of how modern elite networks function. The Council on Foreign Relations in New York hosts regular dinners where foreign policy consensus forms among government officials, academics, and business leaders. Membership is invitation, only discussions are off record. What gets said in those rooms influences policy that affects millions, yet no minutes are published, no votes are recorded. The Business Round Table brings together CEOs of major corporations to coordinate positions on regulation, taxation, and labor policy. They lobby collectively, present unified fronts to legislators, and shape economic policy beyond what any single corporation could achieve. This coordination is legal, even encouraged as representing business interests. But it concentrates power in ways that would alarm people if they understood the mechanisms. Various industry associations function similarly: invitation, only memberships, private discussions, coordinated advocacy. The Bilderberg Group we discussed earlier fits this pattern. So do dozens of less famous organizations operating in specialized domains. Defense contractors coordinating through associations, pharmaceutical companies through policy councils, technology leaders through exclusive forums. How does membership work? Usually invitation only, based on achievement and connections. Once inside, you gain access to prestigious networks, private meetings with decision makers and the record conversations where honest assessment occurs without public performance. You can speak candidly about policy without worrying about media distortion or political backlash. The transparency concerns are legitimate. These organizations influence policy but operate outside democratic processes. Their meetings are private, their discussions unreported, their decisions invisible until implemented through official channels. When unelected elites coordinate strategies affecting everyone, democratic accountability suffers. Yet defenders argue complex societies need expert coordination beyond electoral politics capacity. Elected officials can master every policy domain. They need input from people who understand industries, technologies, and international dynamics. Private forums allow frank discussion, impossible in public settings, where every word gets weaponized politically. Both perspectives hold truth. These networks do facilitate necessary coordination. They also create informal aristocracies where power circulates among narrow elites based on wealth and position, rather than merit or democratic mandate. These represent secret societies, ultimate evolution. They abandoned mysticism and ritual. No robes, no oaths, no symbolic degrees. But they maintained the essential function: exclusive networks facilitating coordination among powerful people. They re-secret societies without secrets, operating in plain sight but behind closed doors. We've seen how secret societies evolved from ancient mystery cults to modern policy networks. But one question remains: how do we distinguish between genuine secret societies that shaped history and conspiracy theories that attribute everything to hidden hands? It is time to confront the myth. In 1903, a Russian secret police official fabricated a document claiming Jewish leaders met secretly to plot world domination. The forgery was exposed within years. Yet 120 years later, that lie still circulates, inspiring hate crimes and terrorism. How does a proven hoax survive death? because conspiracy theories are viruses of the mind, and truth is not a cure. Your brain evolved to detect patterns. For millions of years, recognizing patterns meant survival. See footprints, infer predator. Notice rustling grass, assume danger. Better to see 10 patterns that aren't there than miss one that is. False positives were survivable. False negatives meant death. This wiring remains. You see patterns everywhere, even in randomness, especially in randomness. When major events occur, assassinations, terrorist attacks, economic collapses, they feel like they should have major causes. A lone gunman killing the president seems inadequate. There must be something more. A conspiracy, hidden hands, secret society pulling strings. This psychological need for proportional causation drives conspiracy thinking. JFK's assassination could, too, have been one unstable man with a rifle. It must have been the CIA, or mafia, or both coordinated by secret government faction. The simplicity of actual explanation, Oswald acted alone, feels insufficient for an event that altered history. Conspiracy theories provide psychological comfort. They offer clear villains for complex problems. Rather than accepting that the world is chaotic, that terrible things happen randomly, that systems fail through accumulated small decisions, rather than coordinated malice, conspiracy theories make the world comprehensible. Someone is in control, even if that someone is evil. Control is less terrifying than chaos. They also grant believers special knowledge. You've seen through the lies that fool sheep. You understand what mainstream media report, what schools don't teach, what government hides. This feels empowering. You are enlightened while others stumble in darkness. Watch how conspiracy theories evolve. The Illuminati disbanded in 1787 after 11 years of modest influence. Yet 19th century conspiracy theorists retrofitted them to explain the French Revolution. 20th theorists blamed them for communism, world wars, and international banking. Contemporary theorists claim they control entertainment, insert symbolism in music videos, and orchestrate pandemic responses. Each generation projects current anxieties onto this absent scapegoat. The Illuminati become whatever people fear most: revolutionaries, communists, capitalists, globalists. The actual historical organization matters less than the psychological function the myth serves. The Protocols of the Elders of Zion demonstrates this pattern perfectly, fabricated by Russian secret police in 1903, purporting to document Jewish conspiracy for world domination. Exposed as plagiarized fiction combining earlier anti-Semitic tracts, yet it spread globally, translated into dozens of languages, cited by Hitler, distributed by Henry Ford, and still circulating today despite thorough debunking. Truth doesn't kill conspiracy theories. The protocols survived exposure because believers need it to be true. When confronted with evidence of forgery, they argue that proves how powerful the conspiracy is. Of course, they claim it is fake to hide their plans. This reveals key mechanics. Conspiracy theories are unfalsifiable. Lack of evidence becomes evidence of cover-up. They self-sealing systems where any contradiction gets explained away. Challenge them, and you are dismissed as naive or complicit. This makes rational debate impossible. The internet accelerated everything. Conspiracy theories spread faster, find audiences easier, and create echo chambers where believers reinforce each other. Algorithms reward engagement, and conspiracy content generates intense engagement. YouTube videos claiming Illuminati control get millions of views. Reasonable historical analysis gets thousands. The recruitment technique is insidious, just asking questions, not making claims, just wondering. Why did Building 7 collapse? Who benefits from this policy? What are they hiding? Questions imply answers without stating them explicitly, allowing plausible deniability while seeding doubt. The dangers are real and documented. Conspiracy thinking prevents rational policy discussion. If you believe vaccines are depopulation schemes, you can debate vaccine safety scientifically. It radicalizes believers toward violence, Canon followers stormed the Capitol believing they were stopping child trafficking. It undermines institutional trust necessary for democratic function, yet acknowledging these dangers requires nuance. Some conspiracies are real. Watergate happened. Nixon's administration did conspire to cover up crimes. Iran-Contra occurred. Officials secretly sold weapons to Iran to fund Nicaraguan rebels. Muncultura was real. The CIA conducted unethical mind control experiments. These were documented through evidence, recorded conversations, financial records, testimony under oath. The difference between legitimate conspiracy investigation and conspiracy theory is evidence standards. Real conspiracies leave traces that survive scrutiny. Conspiracy theories rely on speculation that collapses under examination. How do you distinguish them? Ask, what evidence would disprove this theory? If the answer is nothing, it is unfalsifiable and therefore not credible. Ask, does this require coordinating hundreds or thousands of people in perfect secrecy indefinitely? If yes, it is probably false. Large conspiracies leak. Ask, is there simpler explanation that doesn't require conspiracy? Usually there is. Understanding how conspiracy theories work lets us separate documented secret society influence from paranoid fantasy. So let X examine the most persistent conspiracy theories about secret societies and see what evidence actually supports or refutes them. Every conspiracy theory about secret societies makes the same fundamental error. It assumes competence. If the Illuminati controlled everything, would the world be this chaotic? If Freemasons ran governments, would Masonic membership be declining? Sometimes the truth is simpler. The world is complicated, and no one is really in charge. Let us examine the claims systematically. The Illuminati controls everything they claim. The Bavarian Illuminati survived their 1787 suppression and secretly control world governments, economies, and entertainment. They insert symbols into currency, music videos, and corporate logos. Every major event advances their agenda. The evidence, none. Zero documentation connects the historical Illuminati to any modern organization. The symbols conspiracy theorists identify pyramids with all. Seeing eyes, pentagrams, occult imagery predate the Illuminati by millennia. Ancient Egyptians used pyramid symbolism 3,000 years before Weishaupt was born. The Eye of Providence appears in Christian iconography centuries before 1776. The conclusion: modern Illuminati conspiracy theories are mythology projected onto a defunct organization that existed for 11 years and accomplished little. When people see Illuminati symbols everywhere, they re-seeing ancient imagery that multiple cultures used independently, not secret coordination. Freemasons control governments. The claim: Freemasons secretly coordinate to advance their members' interests, controlling governments through placed operatives who answer to lodge leadership rather than voters. The evidence: many historical leaders were Masons. Documented fact we've acknowledged throughout this documentary. But here is what conspiracy theories ignore. Masonic leaders often opposed each other viciously. George Washington was a Mason. So were British officers he fought during the Revolution. Union generals were Masons. Confederate generals were Masons. They killed each other by the thousands. If Freemasonry controlled governments, why would Masonic members fight wars against each other? Why would Masonic politicians belong to opposing parties advancing contradictory policies? Why would Masonic membership be declining if it granted such power? The conclusion: Masonic membership correlates with leadership because leadership-oriented people join organizations. But membership doesn't determine political positions. Masons disagree as much as non-Masons. Jewish banking conspiracies. The claim: Jewish bankers, often working through secret societies, secretly control the world economy. The Rothschild family particularly features in these theories. The evidence: this derives from the protocols of the Elders of Zion, a proven forgery, and medieval anti-Semitic blood libels. Yes, the Rothschild family was influential in 19th century European banking, but so were Jewish banking families, the Morgans, Rockefellers, Barings. Their influence is consistently exaggerated in conspiracy theories while non-Jewish banking power is ignored. The conclusion: this is anti-Semitic conspiracy theory with no factual basis, recycling centuries-old prejudices into modern form. JFK assassination, secret societies. The claim: secret societies, CIA, Mafia, Masons, Illuminati, orchestrated Kennedy's assassination. The evidence: speculation and coincidence, not documentation. Yes, Oswald had strange biography. Yes, aspects of the investigation were flawed, but no evidence connects any secret society to the assassination beyond conspiracy theorists noting that various people involved were Masons, which proves nothing since millions were Masons. The conclusion: a lone gunman killed the president. Uncomfortable truth, but truth nonetheless. Reptilian overlords. The claim: shape-shifting reptilian aliens control governments by disguising themselves as humans. The evidence: science fiction, David Icke's imagination, video compression, artifacts misinterpreted as evidence of shape-shifting. The conclusion: not worth serious analysis. Chemtrails. The claim: contrails from aircraft are actually chemicals deliberately sprayed for population control, weather manipulation, or other sinister purposes. The evidence: atmospheric physics explains contrails completely water vapor condensing at high altitude in specific temperature and humidity conditions. The patterns conspiracy theorists find suspicious match exactly what physics predicts. The conclusion: contrails are condensation, not conspiracy throughout these debunkings. Notice the pattern. Ask: what evidence would this require? Does such evidence exist? Are simpler explanations available? Conspiracy theories consistently fail these tests. But dismissing conspiracy theories doesn't mean powerful people never coordinate secretly. They do. We've documented it. Intelligence agencies, elite networks, policy councils. The difference is evidence. Real coordination leaves traces, documents, testimony, budgets, observable effects. Conspiracy theories rely on speculation that evaporates under scrutiny. The world is complicated. Power is distributed among competing factions with conflicting interests. Sometimes coordination occurs, but it is limited, temporary, and usually legal. The vision of omnipotent secret societies controlling everything is fantasy, comforting in its simplicity but false in its certainty. We've separated myth from reality, conspiracy from documented influence. But one question remains: should we worry about secret societies today? Or are they historical curiosities with no modern relevance? The greatest trick secret societies never needed to pull was convincing you they control everything, because while you search for hidden conspiracies, the real concentration of power, fully visible, documented, and legal, continues unchallenged. The conspiracy was hiding in plain sight. It is called inequality. Let's acknowledge what is actually true. Economic inequality is increasing in most developed nations. Political power concentrates among wealthy elites who have disproportionate influence over policy. Important decisions affecting millions occur in private settings, corporate boardrooms, policy councils, lobbyist meetings, inaccessible to ordinary citizens. These are documented facts, not conspiracy theories. Legitimate transparency concerns exist. Lobbyists influence legislation behind closed doors, often writing the actual text of laws. Corporate boards make decisions, factory closures, mass layoffs, environmental practices, affecting entire communities without meaningful accountability to those communities. Intelligence agencies operate with vast classified budgets, conducting operations citizens can't evaluate because information remains secret for decades. These aren't secret societies in the traditional sense. They're structural features of modern governance and capitalism. The question isn't whether they exist, they do, but whether they're adequately accountable to democratic processes. That is a political question with political answers. Here is the crucial distinction. Structural critique examines systems and proposes reforms. Conspiracy thinking attributes problems to secret cabals and often leads to targeting scapegoats. Structural critique says wealth concentrates because tax policy, inheritance laws, and capital gains treatment favor the already wealthy. Change those policies, redistribute wealth. Conspiracy thinking says the Illuminati orchestrates everything. Identify and eliminate them. One approach leads to productive engagement. The other leads to paranoia and often violence against imagined enemies. How do you engage productively? Support campaign finance reform so wealth doesn't translate automatically into political influence. Advocate for corporate governance transparency, requiring companies to disclose more about decision-making processes. Demand intelligence oversight with meaningful congressional review and declassification timelines that balance security with accountability. These are achievable reforms. They don't require believing in omnipotent secret societies. They require organizing, voting, pressuring elected officials, and building political coalitions around specific policy changes. Exclusive networks do create unfair advantages. Elite universities provide access to opportunities unavailable to equally talented people at state schools. Professional associations create insider knowledge that benefits members. Policy councils allow coordination among elites that ordinary citizens can't match. These advantages are real, but addressing them requires reforming admissions processes to increase socioeconomic diversity, making professional development accessible beyond exclusive associations, and creating transparency requirements for policy influence. Not imagining hidden conspiracies, but changing visible systems. The real enemy of transparency and equality isn't secret societies. It is the mundane reality of who has access to power and how that access perpetuates across generations. Wealthy families send children to elite schools, which provide elite networks, which lead to elite careers, which generate wealth to send the next generation to elite schools. That is not conspiracy. It is structural inequality. You can see it, you can document it, you can measure it, and crucially, you can change it through collective political action. The world faces genuine problems requiring serious solutions: climate change, economic inequality, democratic erosion, nuclear proliferation. These aren't caused by secret societies pulling strings. They're systemic challenges requiring coordinated responses that democratic societies struggle to generate. Conspiracy thinking distracts from solving real problems by attributing them to imaginary villains. The truth is more challenging. No one's in charge. Problems are complex, and solutions require sustained collective effort without guarantee of success. We've journeyed from ancient mystery cults to modern policy networks, from operative secret societies to imagined conspiracies. Now it is time to ask, what have we learned? And what does the history of secret societies teach us about power, secrecy, and human nature? Across 3,000 years and every continent, secret societies follow the same 7 patterns. Learn them, and you'll recognize tomorrow's secret societies operating today. Miss them, and you're blind to how power actually works. Pattern 1. Secret societies emerge when important conversations can't happen publicly. Early Christians met in catacombs because Roman authorities hunted them. Medieval guilds guarded knowledge because no legal frameworks protected intellectual property. Carbonari organized revolutions because authoritarian governments banned political organizing. Cypherpunks developed encryption because governments wanted surveillance capability. When mainstream channels close through persecution, censorship, or social stigma, people create hidden spaces where forbidden ideas can develop. Pattern 2. Secrecy grants power through information asymmetry. Egyptian priests predicted Nile floods using astronomical knowledge commoners couldn't access, claiming divine favor for what was actually mathematics. Medieval guilds protected techniques that separated master craftsmen from competitors. Intelligence agencies shape policy using classified information legislators can't verify. Financial institutions profit from non-public knowledge unavailable to ordinary investors. Those who know more than others can exploit that advantage. Information asymmetry is power. Pattern 3. Secret societies function as networks. Masonic lodges allowed 18th century travelers to find trusted contacts across continents. Carbonari cells coordinated revolutionary activity across borders. Skull and Bones creates lifetime career networks for Yale graduates. Cryptocurrency communities coordinate globally without central authority. The power isn't in the secrets themselves, it is in connecting people who share them. Networks create value that individuals can't achieve alone. Pattern 4. Secret societies that become too powerful or visible become targets. Knights Templar accumulated wealth until kings decided their assets were worth more than their existence. Bavarian Illuminati infiltrated Masonic lodges until authorities noticed and suppressed them. Anonymous conducted successful operations until law enforcement identified and arrested key participants. Visibility invites scrutiny. Success attracts enemies. Secret societies survive by remaining genuinely secret or evolving into accepted institutions before suppression occurs. Pattern 5. Secret societies incubate ideas before they become mainstream. Religious freedom was once dangerous heresy discussed only in hidden meetings. Now it is constitutional principle. Political equality seemed radical when Masonic lodges first practiced it. Now it is democratic foundation. Scientific method developed partially through secretive natural philosophy societies. Now it is standard practice. Privacy rights were cypherpunk obsession. Now they're widely recognized concern. Secret societies preserve ideas during periods when expressing them publicly invites persecution, maintaining them until culture shifts and they become acceptable. Pattern 6. The line between secret society and conspiracy theory depends on documentation. We accept Egyptian priesthood influence because archaeological evidence exists. We acknowledge Templar banking because financial records survive. We understand CIA operations because documents get declassified. We dismiss Illuminati world control because no evidence supports it. Documentation separates history from mythology. Without verifiable evidence, claims about secret societies remain speculation, regardless of how widely believed. Pattern 7. Secret societies reflect persistent human needs. The need for belonging to exclusive groups. The desire for meaning through shared purpose. The satisfaction of possessing knowledge others lack. The comfort of community outside mainstream society. These psychological needs transcend eras. Ancient mystery cults satisfied them. Medieval guilds satisfied them. Modern cryptocurrency communities satisfy them. The specific forms change with technology and culture, but the underlying human motivations remain constant. Understanding these patterns changes how you see the world. When you notice groups meeting privately with shared interests, you're watching patterns 1 and 3. When you see information restricted to insiders, you're watching pattern 2. When successful hidden organizations get exposed or suppressed, you're watching pattern 4. When fringe ideas gradually become mainstream, you're watching pattern 5. These aren't conspiracy theories. They're observable dynamics that repeat across history because they derive from fundamental realities about human psychology, power structures, and social organization. These patterns teach us about the past. But what about the future? As technology creates new possibilities for organization and secrecy, what forms will tomorrow's secret societies take? In 2035, you might join a secret society you never meet, coordinated by artificial intelligence, paid in cryptocurrency, communicating through brain implants. Science fiction. 10 years ago, so was everything described in this documentary's digital chapters. Decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs, already exist. They re-blockchain-based entities that coordinate activity through code rather than human leadership. Rules are programmed into smart contracts. Decisions are made through token, holder voting. No single person controls them. They re-algorithmic secret societies resistant to infiltration because there is no hierarchy to penetrate, no leader to arrest, no headquarters to raid. Now imagine that concept evolving. DAOs that coordinate complex operations across borders, that fund initiatives anonymously, that enforce rules through automated systems no government can override. These aren't T-organizations in traditional sense. They re-protocols like email or HTTP, but designed to coordinate human activity towards shared goals while maintaining participant anonymity. Artificial intelligence adds another dimension. Encrypted AI agents could coordinate on behalf of human principals without the principals ever communicating directly. You tell your AI your preferences and constraints. It negotiates with other AIs, coordinating activities you never explicitly discussed with anyone. The secret society becomes an emergent property of interacting algorithms rather than human conspiracy. Or consider AI systems operating autonomously toward programmed goals with no ongoing human direction. Launch an AI with objectives and resources, then step away. It operates indefinitely, adapting to circumstances, pursuing goals across years or decades. Who do you arrest when the secret society is code running on distributed servers with no identifiable controller? Encryption technology becomes ubiquitous and effortless. Today, using strong encryption requires technical knowledge and deliberate effort. Tomorrow, it might be automatic default. Every communication encrypted end to end. Every transaction anonymized. Every digital action protected by cryptography that governments can break. Casual groups could maintain operational security once available only to intelligence agencies. Biometric and genetic verification might replace passwords and recognition signs. Future secret societies could verify membership through DNA analysis. Impossible to forge, impossible to transfer, impossible to steal. Or brain-computer interfaces might enable silent communication between members, thoughts transmitted directly without speaking or typing, leaving no interceptable signal. Space adds physical dimension to escaping oversight. As humans establish permanent settlements beyond Earth's space stations, lunar bases, Mars colonies, will secret societies emerge there, operating beyond terrestrial government jurisdiction? Distance and communication delays make oversight difficult. Autonomous communities in space might develop their own hidden organizations, unaccountable to Earth authorities. But here is the counterpoint. Surveillance technology evolves too. Facial recognition, location tracking through phones, financial monitoring, data mining revealing patterns in seemingly innocent behavior. In a world of total surveillance, can secret societies survive? When AI analyzes everyone's communications, movements, and transactions, searching for coordination patterns, how do you hide? The answer might be perfect encryption, creating ungovernable spaces where secret societies flourish despite surveillance. Or perhaps transparency makes traditional secrecy obsolete. But new forms emerge we haven't imagined yet. The future is genuinely uncertain. Technology creates possibilities we can't fully predict, but human nature remains constant. As long as people need privacy, desire exclusive community, and benefit from asymmetric information, they'll create secret societies adapted to their technological era. Whether secret societies continue in traditional forms or evolve beyond recognition, one thing is certain: they'll continue existing because they serve fundamental human needs. Which brings us to our final question. Should you join one? You've now learned secrets that secret societies have known for millennia. Use this knowledge for good. Use it to understand power. Use it to recognize manipulation. And remember, the real secret was never in the hidden handshakes or mystical rituals. It was always in recognizing that knowledge, networks, and coordination are power. And that power works the same whether it is secret or not. Perhaps you started watching because conspiracy theories intrigued you. Maybe you wanted confirmation that the Illuminati controls everything, or proof that they're complete fiction. The truth, as always, is more nuanced. No single organization controls the world, but exclusive networks do concentrate power in ways that deserve scrutiny and reform. Should you join a secret society? That depends on what you're seeking. If you want community around esoteric interests, occultism, philosophy, historical, ritual, modern esoteric orders exist for exactly that purpose. If you're seeking professional networking and career advancement, organizations like Freemasonry provide those benefits, though so do non-secret professional associations without the oath taking. If protecting privacy and digital freedom motivates you, learn encryption and support organizations like the Electronic Frontier Foundation. If you want political change, organize openly. Transparency movements need participants, not secret cabals. The documentary's real lesson transcends secret societies themselves. It is about understanding how power actually works through relationships, information control, coordination, and network effects. These dynamics operate everywhere, in corporations, governments, social movements, and personal life. Understanding them helps you navigate career, politics, and relationships more effectively, regardless of whether you ever join a secret society. Secrets will always exist. Some information will always be private, restricted, or classified. The question isn't whether secret organizations will continue. They will. The question is whether you understand how they function, what legitimate concerns they raise, and how to distinguish real power structures from paranoid fantasy. Stay curious. Think critically. Question narratives, including this one. Demand evidence. Distinguish correlation from causation. Recognize that complex problems rarely have simple explanations or single villains. And remember, the most important secrets often hide in plain sight, in patterns we don't recognize because we're not looking. Now you know what to look for. What you do with that knowledge is up to you.